Hey, you know what? What's going on? That was just a quick preview of my brand new little Hello animated logo thingy. I don't know. Welcome back for episode 34 of the Ready Set Shag podcast. Whatever you're watching, I really appreciate you over on Rumble, whether you're on X, Twix, Twitter, whatever it's called, or here on YouTube or listening on Spotify after the fact. But this is a podcast where I like to sit down with people who I admire, people who I look up to, or just want to get to know. And obviously, today's guest, no exception to the rule. He's a man I've had a couple of live streams with. We've spoken behind the scenes. We've met in person. We've done a little bit of everything, but we get to sit down, I think, really like one-on-one for the first time to really talk it out. So I'm excited to do that. Joining me today, the co-founder of the Epicverse, Epic Mike. What's going on, dude?
Hey, how's it going, man? Thanks for having me.
Yes, pleasure. The
Yeah.
pleasure is all mine. Um, so let's give people a quick little rundown. My little blurb about you being the co-founder of the Epicverse. But for those who don't know you, there's a lot of people within the fellowship and the YouTube community who know who you are. But for those who don't know who you are, let's get a quick rundown of you, and then got kind of what the Epicverse is.
Yeah. I'm Epic Mike. Generally known for being part of Geeks and Gamers. Been rocking with them for a long time now. But really primarily probably the last like 3 years or so I've been featured on their channel and doing streams and stuff with them. I'm also really good friends with Josiah Rises, and a few years ago we decided we wanted to pull the trigger on starting our own production company. So we figured out what that was going to look like and just kind of went and started doing the damn thing. So we started Epicverse Studios, and just kind of started getting to work on things. Obviously, our sphere, there's been a lot of people jumping in and making a splash as far as independent wise, whether it's in comics or art or music or whatever. So that we decided to put our handprint or our footprint in the film industry, and so we've been working hard on that. Still working on behind the scenes to get it officially ready to launch as a company, but that's kind of the plan, and that's the goal, is to get things done and organized, and yeah, present you guys with some really cool stuff to look forward to. Yeah.
Is your like, do you have a background in film? Like, did you go to school for film, or like, how did you kind of how did you guys land, or maybe you specifically land on film versus anything else?
Yeah. I mean, I've always just been a creative in general. Like, I mean, I wrote stories a lot as a kid, and I've always had like an overactive imagination, which is probably where all this came from. Um, but yeah, I mean, and I grew up watching and I read a lot as a kid. Um, and like when I say a lot, like not just like not a lot of comics and stuff. I got into comics later in life.
Mhm.
But I really I read all the classics and loved reading. It was like one of my favorite things to do. Um, and then as I got older, I got more into gaming and then movies and stuff like that. And um, I've always had like a passion to write stories, but like books were just never. I was always like, do I want to write my own book? I'm like, nah. I really like visual storytelling and stuff. And it was about, oh man, let me think here, 2000, 2007, 2008, yeah, 2008 or so. Um, I had just got out of high school and trying to figure out what I wanted to do with my life. And I was like, do I want to do college? What do I want to do? Where do I want to go? And things like that. And, just ended up just getting a job. I was working at a factory somewhere and just kind of like whatever, just trying to make ends meet and make money and stuff. And I remember getting so bored in this factory that I was like, fuck, I got to do something. I'm going to lose my mind. So I started like thinking up stories and stuff. I was like, well, that's what I used to do as a kid. I'm like, I'll just come up with story ideas. And I came up with this idea for like a television show, which was like superhero based or whatever. And I like had all these characters and stuff. And I started writing it down, and I started researching like what it looked like to make a TV show and how TV shows were structured, and what was really working for those and what wasn't working for TV shows and stuff like that. And I really got pretty invested in that, and like got really hyped about it. Then I had a couple of friends of mine, specifically one friend of mine that I left that job and I started a business, selling firewood of all things. So I started doing that, and I had a buddy that was working with me, and he was really invested in like acting, wanted to be an actor. He, became part of SAG, got a couple parts, background parts in films and movies and TV shows, and was really pursuing it. And then he got really into wanting to make his own movie, and started writing a script and stuff. And we just really started talking about it. And it was one of those things that like our passions kind of aligned. So we talk about his show, and I talk about my ideas for my TV show, and I came up with a bunch of other ideas for shows and movies, and just like was just filling notebooks full of these ideas and stuff like that. And then um I got married, and uh right after getting married, wife got pregnant, we had a kid, and so that kind of just put that on the back burner as like a thing. And there were other plans, at one point, in between the also wanting to do stories and write a TV show, I also really wanted to be a professional wrestler.
No
That was
way,
also
really?
something, yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah, that was like a big passion of mine, like huge passion. Before I got fat and out of shape, I was actually a really good athlete. I was actually in really, 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 really good shape. And yeah, I was gonna go be a professional wrestler. That was something I had planned on. And um I had went down to a school in Atlanta. I was gonna move down to Atlanta, and things just didn't work out. And instead of ending up homeless, I ended up coming home instead. I probably could have been homeless and made it work, but at the time I was young and naive and was like, nah, I'll just come home and I'll figure it out, and just got wrapped up in the rat race of everything. So I ended up not becoming a wrestler, but it was a passion of mine for a long time. And then after having a kid and stuff, I just kind of was like, yeah, we're gonna put that on the back burner and stuff. But I always at that same time, I was always creating and writing ideas down and stuff like that. Um, and wrestling was always like a passion, but it was always like a step of like, I want to do this, but one day I want to do more. I want to write stories, or do movies, or direct something, or write screenplays or something. That was always like the hope for the next step or whatever. So
Mm-hmm.
yeah, we started doing that. And then I started, hoping for that. And then a few years into marriage, just working and just making ends meet and trying to run a business and stuff. It's a lot of work. And I ended up just being like, yeah, I don't. The business thing was like a lot, and it was just a lot of work, and taking a really big toll on my body physically and stuff. Then I ended up switching to another job, and I was like, oh god, like another, dead end like factory job or whatever. I was like, this is going from having all my own time to none of my time. It's like the worst thing in the world, and I had
Yeah.
a terrible attitude. I'll yeah. I have a couple stories about my last like official like factory job. Yeah, I like burned like all my OT in like a month. I had like 40 hours of like or PT, I mean personal time, and I
Yeah.
burned it all like in the first month that I got my job there. And normally like, you get fired for missing time, and I was like, nah, you guys told me I had PT, like I'm burning it.
Yeah.
Yeah, they were not happy about that. And then that was like at the end of the year that I started working there, and your time reset at the beginning of the next year. So like in January my time reset, and I burned all of that in like a month. I just like, dude, and they were like furious with me, and they're like, yo, and I'm like, I don't care, bro. Like I don't like working here. I hate this shit. Like fire me if you want to, blah blah blah. So that was
Yeah.
like a whole thing. Yeah. So I've definitely done the hard working thing. But yeah, during that time, yeah, there's my wife is always encouraging me, and she's like, yeah, you should definitely get into movies and stuff. And I'm like, I don't know. I just don't know what to do. And I don't know how to do it and stuff. And one day, she finds this ad with this guy, and he's like, it was on Craigslist. I know that sounds terrible, but like she found this ad, and it was a guy, and he was like, hey, I'm a screenwriter. I'm making a movie. I'm really interested in making movies. I'm just looking for like-minded people that are looking to do the same. Maybe we could talk, maybe we could figure something out, blah blah blah.
Mhm.
And that actually happened to be Josiah. And I was like, huh, well, that's cool. She's like, hey, you should maybe just talk to the guy. I mean, like, he lives pretty close by. You could just like, see if he's crazy or not or whatever. And I was like, yeah, sure, why not? So like we met at a park, like both of our families, like we brought our kids and stuff, and we met at a park, and we just talked it out, and we were both like had seen a lot of the same movies, and we're really really passionate about storytelling and stuff. And he was like, yeah, I'm working on this independent film that I'm working on by myself, like pretty much all just me. And, I'm just looking for people to kind of help out and see what they can do and stuff. And he's like, I'm already done with this one, but after this one, I'm kind of hoping to do more in the future. And I was like, yeah, dude, totally. So we, kind kind of put our heads together. And long story short, Josiah like did his own short or his own full feature length movie that he did on his own with no experience, nothing, just all by himself. I told him, I was like, you should be proud of this, dude. You did something more than anybody else has done. Most people, go ahead.
When was this that you guys had first met? Like when was this
Oh my
first
gosh,
meeting and
this
him
was
kind of finishing up that movie?
2014.
Okay,
Maybe?
so yeah, it's about 10
Like
years
8 or
then.
9 years ago. Yeah,
Yeah,
8 or 9,
8,
10
9.
years ago. Yeah, something like that. It might have been a
Okay.
little later than that. The timeline's a little fuzzy, but yeah, like 8 or 9 years ago or something like that. Yeah, and so he did that, and I helped him a lot with kind of planning out what we would do, what else we would do, and what more we could do with it and stuff. And that's more Josiah's story, his side of things, and him telling it.
Mhm.
Um, but that he ended up, movies are expensive and it's a lot of work and it's a lot of time, and trying to get a second one off the ground was looking nigh impossible. So he ended up kind of pursuing YouTube instead, and he kind of did his thing with YouTube, and I just kind of went back to working. I ended up, becoming a contractor for another business, and I liked that a lot more because I had a lot more free time and stuff. And during that time, me and Josiah constantly bouncing ideas off each other and talking about stuff. We've come up with ideas for board games. We've come up with ideas for TV shows, movies, connected universes, all kinds of stuff. And we just always talking about it and stuff, and just hanging out. And I was always writing or coming up with ideas. And then 2020 hit, and we all got locked in our houses and kind of sitting at home. And I was like, um, man, what do I do with my time? And I don't know. And there was this program that my wife had always talked to me about called Act One. And it was they were a Christian organization, but they were a group of like people that knew how to do screenwriting. They're all like experienced industry professionals. They just
Mm.
happen to all be Christians as well. And I thought that was pretty cool. And my wife had mentioned it to me, and the lady that ran it, her name is Barbara Nicolosi. Um, she's like she's a screenwriter as well, but she also does like script consultation and stuff. She's a really
Oh,
smart lady, and she has some really cool conversations and ideas about art and what art is and what story is, and structure of story and things like that. I think she has some really, really, really cool insight into that stuff. So I was like, hey, but in order to go to this program, you had to move to LA, or you had to go to LA for like 6 weeks or 8 weeks or whatever it was. I don't
mhm.
remember how long it was. And I was like, well, that's not happening, but my wife was like, maybe we could figure something out. She's always encouraging me and stuff. And then lo and behold, when 2020 hit and everybody's locked in their houses, they're like, hey, now everything can be remote. Maybe maybe we'll offer remote classes. And I was like, what a concept. Maybe you should have been offering that before.
Right.
Yeah. So, you had to submit a bunch of stuff and some of your work. I had no real work done because I'd never written a screenplay before. So I put together a couple ideas for some stuff, and then I wrote the first 3 pages of a screenplay, having no idea how to really structure one. I looked up like a guide on Google on how to do it. And
Mhm.
I sent it in, and they really liked it, and they were like, "Yo, we'd love for you to be in the program." So they had me sign up and stuff, and I went through this course, and they gave you a crash course every day, multiple classes, and you'd go through story structure, and you'd go through how to write story, and show don't tell, and what that meant, and all this
Mhm.
different stuff. We met a lot of industry professionals who gave us a lot of advice on how to get into the business, and what works about the business and what doesn't, and how to
You and
make the
Josiah
market of
both
it.
did this, or just you?
Just me, just
Okay.
me. Yep. During that time, just I was doing YouTube full time and stuff, and
Oh.
he's the guy's a workhorse. So
Mhm.
yeah, he was doing his thing, and I was doing this, and I was like, maybe it'll go somewhere. So yeah, I did this course, I finished it, and by the end, I had a full outline ready, and basically everything I needed to write my own screenplay for a movie. And I had a really cool idea that I put together for it and everything like that. And was like, yeah, we'll see what happens, and that was 2020. Then we obviously we get out of our houses and stuff, but we're talking and stuff like that. And during that time, Josiah got demonetized on YouTube randomly for no reason, and he was like kind of bummed, and I was like, yeah, man. And I was like, maybe we should try to figure out some of these other ideas. And so we started talking about other ideas and what we could do and how we could make this work. But obviously life is life, and it kept going. So, we all had to get back to work and trying to just pay the bills and stuff like that. While that was going on, about a year after he got demonetized, he got remonetized on YouTube again. And YouTube was like, yo, you're back. And he's like, oh, hey, I'm back. And he's like, I'm going to go back to getting back into YouTube and stuff again. So he started doing that. And I was like, you know what? We should make a really big event out of you coming back. And he was like, yeah, we should. And so we're like, let's just like, I don't know, shoot something. Let's just like make something together or whatever. So like we got like a bunch of we had this idea. We like sketched out this like little idea. We got cardboard and dry ice, and it was like 10 or 11 o'clock at night, and we shot this like little like promo for his channel where he was like coming back to YouTube and stuff, and it was like a whole thing where his like hand comes out of a grave and stuff. And we did this with like seriously, like just like in a few hours, like, or like in a day. And we put this together and shot it, and he edited it, and we put it out on his channel, and we showed it off on Geeks and Gamers, and people really liked it, and it got us the bug again. We were like, man, we really should do something about this movie thing. And he was like, yeah, dude, we really should. And so we started talking about what that would look like and how we'd structure that, and we started coming up with names. We threw out a bunch of names. And for people that don't believe me, they can, or you can believe me or not, we actually had the name Epicverse well before we knew anything about what Rippa was doing. We actually at the time, we had no idea that Rippa was doing a comic book company. We had no idea any of this was all happening. We're like, yo, we're quietly working on this production studio behind the scenes. And then Rippa was like, well, it's funny. Like, I'm actually working on a comic book company right now. And I was like, that's crazy. What are the chances, So that's kind of how, like, that's the general long-ish ranty timeline of how Epicverse became like a fully fleshed out idea. We had always kind of had thoughts and plans and hopes to do it, but it just happened to be kind of the perfect time to do it. And then, obviously, Rippaverse Comics dropped, and he kind of made a big splash in the industry. Shocked everybody, and we were like, man, somebody's going to see what he just did and try to do the same thing with movies. And we would very much like to be one of the first people to be able to get in there. We very much like to run through that door as quickly as possible. So we just put our noses down and just said, let's figure out what we want to do. We came up with some plans. We already had plans already, but we kind of accelerated those plans and said, all right, here's what we can do. Let's figure this out and let's just get going. And so we started working on stuff, worked on a lot of things and learned a lot, and slowly started putting together like a team of people that we trusted and believed that could like help us do that. And that's kind of where we are now, is we're just kind of working on stuff, kind of just trying to get all these projects together, projects done. Yeah, I know I can rant. I know me, I can talk a lot. So
right. Well, yeah, it seems like you guys have quite a bit of projects going on the Epicverse website. You guys have a few like posters basically of projects that you guys, potential projects that you guys want to get going. And I don't know how well, you guys released a teaser recently for remind me of the movie. Sorry, Reflection? I'm trying to, Reflection. Yeah. So where in production is that? Is it like, did you guys just kind of throw that together to show like, this is what we're capable of in like the editing wise, like the tension that we're going to build, the script, like kind of here's a little like teaser of that? Or are you guys in full motion of like, we're shooting this thing and expect it to come out like in the near future?
Yeah. So,
or can you not say? I mean, you can also say that.
Like that's the thing. The thing about being the co-founder is I can say whatever I want to say. It's whether or not I'm going to have to fight with Josiah after the fact. No.
Right.
The very basic, because I've said this before. So yeah, we had projects announced. And the basic idea was when we decided we wanted to do this, we were like, what I didn't want to do when we talked about it and sat down, as like, and Josiah was in agreement on this. I didn't want to start a company or start an idea for a project and then go, hey, let's do a crowdfunder. Let's promise everybody we're going to to take this money and do with this money the right thing. Not that there's anything wrong with that side of things. It's just I wanted to be able to try something different because I know that, you know, if I raise this money and I don't know what I'm doing, or I'm still an amateur filmmaker, I'm still learning the ropes, and I use all that money to figure things out, then, you know, I get to the end and I go, hey, here's this project I did, and I figured out how to do filmmaking. So give me more money so I can do more filmmaking.
Mhm.
You know, instead
Right.
I was like, why don't we figure that out on the back end? Let's go start making, you know, we came up with these like 6 ideas. We said, okay, we got like 6 pretty solid ideas that we really liked. Wrote scripts for them, said, let's do these and let's shoot these ideas and stuff. So like Reflection, um, you know, is pretty much it's more it's in post-production. Like we've got all the principal shooting done for it. It's a short film. All the stuff that we're doing are short films. We don't have any feature length projects right now
Okay.
because it's a lot of time and effort, and instead of putting all of our eggs in one feature film, the idea was to give people a bunch of different genres and types of filmmaking and filmmaking techniques, and you can kind of watch how we start to how we finish. The
I like
point was
that.
kind of, yeah, it's to take you guys on a journey. Like you will see, you know, on our very first film we had like 3 guys behind the camera and then the actors, and then from there we ended up with Reflection, and that had a full crew of guys and working on it and stuff. And so that was kind of the goal, is just to you as the consumer, when we finally launch and stuff, have projects that we can look at and go, okay, these guys really are learning how to do it, and they're learning how to do it right. And then,
Mhm.
you know, even industry professionals can look at that and go, these guys are really trying, and they're not just um thinking that they're, you know, putting something out there and going, whatever, like you guys have to accept it or like it because whatever. You know,
Yeah.
it was like we want to make sure that we are putting our best foot forward, because the thing is, like, movies are a lot of work,
Yeah.
and it's really easy sometimes to think, okay, I've reached an acceptable level of filmmaking where people will like our stuff. You know, you can make Tubi level quality stuff and people will buy it and people will like it because they like you, or they, you know, but I'm like, I don't want people to just buy my stuff because they like me. I want people to
Mhm.
buy my stuff because they feel like it's worth investing in, and it feels like it could be something in the future or be more in the future.
Yeah.
That's the hope, you know?
Mhm.
Um
I'll tell you,
so
it's crazy how boring filmmaking is, sometimes. Not
yes.
all the time, but people don't realize, like, when you watch a film, I mean, they shoot films usually, like, was it like 3 to 6 months is the general, like, feature they try, or I'm sorry, 6 to 9 months, I think, is the general,
Yeah, it
like,
depends. You
time
know,
frame.
every feature's different. Yeah.
But,
Yep.
like, you watch a scene that sometimes those scenes are shot, 50 times, different
Yeah.
angles, or, like, someone keeps forgetting their lines. You see the outtake reels all the time, but, like, sometimes it's not even because people are messing up, but you're just constantly shooting because something might be off a little bit. Director doesn't like where this person was standing, whatever.
Yeah.
Like, it can be a very boring process. And then sometimes I remember I was working on a commercial one time, and because of the low budget, and we only had we were basically it was a we were pushing a truck over a cliff in a quarry,
Oh,
and we were like lighting it on fire,
yeah.
and we had one shot to do it,
Yeah.
so we couldn't mess it up, you know what I mean? So there's all these things that we're doing to make sure that, like, everything's right, all the things are in there.
Yeah.
They had to make sure all, like, the car was completely prepped, like, they took everything out of the, like, under the hood there's like nothing, they took
Oh,
the
yeah.
engine out basically. um and then we had to be in a certain spot where we're pushing the truck because there's nothing in it. And if we took one step too much, the shot's ruined because you would have seen the top of my head, but it was supposed to be like as if someone was driving the truck off, right?
Yep.
But yeah, it's like there's so many different things that make filmmaking either a pain or just a snore fest sometimes. Yeah, it's a really interesting thing. So doing these films, even a short film, is like, it's not only time consuming, but you're like, oh my God, it can be a drag, but
Yeah.
the seeing it at the end, you realize, like, how worth it is, especially when you get it, you're editing it and everything's starting to come together and you're seeing the fruits of your labor, just like, oh, it looks beautiful, and that
Yeah.
that teaser was was awesome. It was like I was watching
I
something,
appreciate
at
that.
least I thought. It looked like I was watching something right out of, like a Hollywood trailer.
I appreciate that, man. Yeah, we worked hard on it. I know a lot of people assume that we just made a trailer, but I'm like, no, that's just footage cut from what we shot.
Mm.
And that's with it still kind of being in the editing phase because we're still working on the movie itself. But yeah, we just wanted to give you guys something to look forward to because I mean, it is a lot of work, and like you said, it's a lot of tedium, and part of it is like, people are going like, what's going on, what's going on with Epicverse, what are you guys doing, you guys even doing anything and stuff. We're like,
Right.
yes, we're doing something. And they're like, prove that you're doing something. And I'm like, I shared a lot of production stills, we've shared production stills and stuff. None of that matters. Like, people want to see something. So I was like, you know what, like, we were going to MegaCon, we were like, you know what, let's put something together.
Oh
And
yeah.
some of our best footage is from this, because that's the our most recent production that we had worked on, and everything like that. And we had a brand new, that we actually had like a lot of brand new people come on the team that were like, industry professionals that wanted to help us out with stuff. So yeah, I was really happy with it. I'm very happy with how it turned out. I've told the story a million times. First of all, it was my first time ever directing anything, so that was a very new thing for me.
Hmm.
Um, but I did a lot of reading and a lot of research about directing and what I should do, and got a lot of advice from people that have worked in the industry or done directing before and stuff. And one of the things that they told me was like, listen, if you got a good team around you, then just trust your team. And that's kind of what I got to do. I was like, hey guys, this is what I want to do here, this is what I want to do there, let's make it work. And we're in a hospital with no power, all battery operated lights, all battery operated everything, and generators and stuff like that. And it's like, okay, here we go. And these guys would walk into a space, we'd look at it, we'd kind of block it all out, and then I'd leave to go work on something else or work with the camera guy on what we were going to do. And I'd come back and it's lit up
Brought to life.
amazingly. Yeah, brought to life completely. I was like, this doesn't even look like the same place. It was crazy. And then we got into set design and stuff. We have a really cool guy who, he was very passionate about it and stuff. And a lot of these guys that I worked with, they've been doing stuff in the industry for a long time, but because of the way the film industry is, it's really hard. There's not like a ton of creative work, in Michigan. A
Hmm.
lot of it's like in Atlanta or, in California or New York. You have to kind of be centralized. But the nice thing about um, what's happening now in the industry, I think, is the interconnectivity of like streaming and online platforms and stuff. I feel like it's kind of decentralized the need to be in LA to make movies. Yes,
Yeah.
it's helpful, especially when you have sound stages and stuff, but it's like it's not as necessary as it was before. And that's part of the reason we wanted to do this too, is because we're hoping to create a platform here where we live to connect people and start kind of jumpstart the film industry here so people can make movies and make products here and productions here, and we can kind of help connect people. Because that's the thing, it's amazing how many people we would like, hey, yeah, I'm working on a movie right now. And they're like, oh, dude, I used to do this on movie sets, or I used to do this and things, or, we like, there's a place nearby where I live. And this guy has an entire warehouse full of production equipment that he
Wow.
rents out to people. And he's like, he's been in the industry for a long time, but the Michigan film industry at one point was kind of booming. And then we had a stupid governor decide that movies weren't making enough tax revenue, so he killed all the film incentives, and all these studios and productions packed up and moved to Atlanta.
Oh,
So
that's
they
the
just
worst.
disappeared. Yeah, and it killed a lot of people's stuff. But there's a ton of people we were finding that had work and experience in the industry and a lot of drive and a lot of passion. And so once we talked to them about like, yo, this is what our plans are, they're like, dude, I'm all in. Let's do it. And that's been really huge.
Has
Um,
Let
go
me
ahead.
ask a question. Has like being in a place that what has being in a place that doesn't have like that Hollywood connection done for you guys as filmmakers? Do you think it's I mean, I guess I'll end it there. What do you think being in a place that's not LA, or giving you guys big incentives to make films, no access, no easy access to sound stages? How do you think that's affected you guys as filmmakers?
I mean, it's been a challenge. Um, the biggest thing I think for me, and we've been really fortunate. That's really what it comes down to. Been very fortunate, very lucky. there's a tendency when you get used to being independent or being on your own
Mhm.
that you start to develop habits or you start to develop ways of doing things that mostly facilitated by being on your own. Like, not having access to sound stages means you have to shoot on location a lot and you have to do things like that. And that's all well and good. Shooting on location is great. It's actually very preferable. Sometimes you need sound stages or sometimes you need these things. Um, we could have gotten into a lot of really bad habits. But I think we've avoided that because we've met so many people that have worked in the industry for as long as they have that kept us from falling into the bad habits. So
Mhm.
the best part about it is we're not required to follow the rules of we don't have to follow the same beaten paths that everybody's followed. We can kind of like forge a newish path. Everything's not, nothing's new. It's like we're not the first production studio ever or anything
Right.
like that, but it gives us an opportunity to try new things or try something different or follow a way that most people like will go, oh, well, this is how everybody in Hollywood does it. And it's like, yeah, but we don't really need to do it that way, do we? And then you find that some things work better if you don't do it that way. But then also, we've been fortunate enough, like I said, to have industry professionals with us to say, hey, some of the reason that we do it this way is because it works best this way. Like
Yep.
Hollywood isn't completely devoid of quality, or else they would never be able to make anything good. It's
Right.
that there are some time tested traditions that work for them, and there are some that don't. And some that have become bloat or become unnecessary because of the growth of technology or because of the changing times and stuff. And so, excuse me, that's kind of the benefit and the negative is that one, we don't have the infrastructure to lean back on to say, hey, let's do this or let's do it this way. We're kind of
Yep.
always doing it guerrilla style and stuff. But the other benefit of it is because of that, we also ran into a lot of people that weren't busy but with a lot of experience that could help us hone things and do things the right way. It's like, we're not trying to find a new way to invent the wheel, but we're also finding that we don't have to use the same tools that everybody else is to make a wheel,
Yeah.
if that makes sense. Yeah.
No, totally. Um, yeah, it's funny, like you were saying before about like people asking, what's going on with the Epicverse? Where are they like and you're like showing production stills and all that, and um people are never satisfied. And it's become clear to me that you just have to ignore a lot of people, like especially when you're doing what you're doing, right? When you're doing like a
Yeah.
big project, when Eric July is doing big project, when anyone who's doing big projects, doesn't matter what your name is, you almost have to ignore what people are saying to an extent, because no one will ever be happy with what you have. They always want
Yeah.
more. And it's really unfortunate because I've tried to tell people this, because some of the criticisms that I've heard, or, with talking with people in the recent past, is that, well, I don't know about Epicverse because, what have they put out? Well, they put out this. And I'm like, yeah, well, there's, I mean, you don't just like throw things together. Like there's you need time for this stuff to like bake,
Yeah.
and I think especially with a movie studio, because I think Hollywood's taken a pretty big nosedive with recent over the recent years. I
Yeah.
think we're starting to see some films that have like kind of turned the nose back up and are kind of ignoring a lot of the stuff that we've been talking about.
Hmm.
But if you're new on the scene and you're trying to like establish yourself as, hey, we are serious about making movies. First of all, I think it's really smart to begin with like shorts, or
Yeah.
not feature length, because I think you guys will get your style down. Like I think people will understand like, oh, this is how these guys are making movies. Like
Hmm.
I'm sure every single one has like your feel to it, and people will
Yeah.
get that after watching them. Um, but yeah, I totally am in defense of the fact, like I think there's definitely something to be said for people who take their time in the beginning to learn the ins and outs. And as you said, understanding if you're going to go the crowdfunding way of saying, hey, we're doing this campaign, you guys put forth this money and we'll be able to do this movie or whatever, you know, you need to know, what does that mean for you guys? Like what are the things that you can do with people's money. Obviously you can take that money and make your movie, but what, like, even something as simple as, okay, what can we give you for that money? You know, is it going to be a DVD? Is it going to be your name on the box? Is it going to be a trophy? Whatever the fucking prizes are, you know? And because you don't want to be the artist or the independent creator that's not delivering what they're saying they're delivering. You know, you want to be reliable, because that's how you build, at least in my opinion, that's how you build trust with the consumers, so they continue to invest in future projects. So
absolutely. Yeah.
So, like, to that end, I like where you guys are at. If I would be lying if I said I wasn't like anxious to see more, you know, of course I want to see what you guys are doing. I wish I was able to make it out to MegaCon. But I want to see the projects. I want to see them as they grow. And I love movies. I don't know if I've ever told you, but I started in film school, and
nice.
I dropped it because I became disenfranchised with like what the career is like. When you go to like film school and you like start making movies, it's a very long and like thankless process.
Yes.
It's one of the first things that like any good film school will tell you, is that this is really hard and you're probably going to be starving for a while. And like they give you the whole warning, like, this is boring. You're going to, like, when you start, you're going to be like carrying coffees for people, or, you know, or if you don't have money, like, they're like, if you don't know somebody who's like Steven Spielberg's like assistant, you're going to be doing the bitch work. And so I was a bit disenfranchised at the beginning, but so I started actually, because I liked writing the way you did. You were saying, like, I started writing some of my own stuff, and I have a couple of ideas that I've always wanted to put forth, as well as like projects. And I did a couple of classes that were fun, but it never really went anywhere. So, but seeing you guys do it and start from the ground up, it starts to reinvigorate my soul to be like, okay, like, these guys are doing it. Erchelai's doing it. All these other creators are rising up and saying, I'm not going to worry about what Hollywood's doing right now, because they suck. But there's people out there who want to invest their own money in making something great, or at least trying to build something.
Yeah.
So,
absolutely.
So it's a huge applause to you guys for doing that, because I know it's not easy. And
no.
and even like, you're using your own money and time. Like, you guys aren't, Josiah, you know, he's probably funding through his YouTube channel, and you guys are, and I'm not sure where you are, but like, it's not easy to have to like take money that is not, you know what I mean? Like, it's not something, you're not funded.
It is not like we are extremely wealthy or anything. All of this stuff's getting shot on shoestring budgets.
Right.
But like I said, it's very guerrilla style. It's like, you know, okay, let's make this work. And, you know, like, never breaking the law or anything crazy like that. But like, sometimes you're like, yo, can we shoot here? And you're like, sometimes like you just like go and shoot somewhere, and you're like, all right, like, I guess if we find out we can't, we won't, like, or, you know,
right.
we haven't really had to do a lot of that, but it's like, but sometimes it's like stuff like that. You're like, okay, how can we do this? One of the things I will say that's a benefit of that is that we're learning a lot about how much you can do with a little. And to be honest, that's how some of the best filmmakers have gotten there. This is not me saying that's where I'm at. Like, oh yeah, well, you know, but like, it's like a lot of filmmakers got started when they didn't have a big budget to work with, and they learned the craft, and they learned to appreciate having a little, so they could do a lot with a little. You know, I mean, if you know, when you look at like the production behind Star Wars and how small of a budget they had and how much they had to make work with the little bit they had, and you know, some of the tricks that they did through editing and things to make things look better, and you know, you hear about like the movie Alien, and it's like what they had to do behind the scenes with that and stuff. It's like there's a lot of that stuff that happens in the industry, and it's like those smaller budget films that you do, you learn to really make a lot of magic happen. And I think you know, so that's one of the things we're learning now, is like, it's actually a lot cheaper to make movies than I thought it would be in some ways. In other ways, it's very expensive. You know, it's like, but my thing is like now I'm like getting to the point where I'm like, wow, if we reach this threshold, we can make a lot of stuff happen
Yeah.
versus like needing $25 million to make one movie. It's like sometimes you don't need that. Like, yeah, it can get to that point eventually, depending on the size. But we're seeing, the fact that like movies like Dune are shot for less money than Captain Marvel or Indiana Jones 5. And
That's
you're like,
wild.
how is this happening? Like,
Yeah.
how is a movie of this scale and this quality that much cheaper than this movie here, um
What is
but like,
I
yeah.
was going to ask you what came as this, I guess I don't know if it was a surprise, but it sounded like it was. What was a surprise to you that was more expensive than you realized? You had mentioned just a
um
couple minutes.
Lighting is really expensive. Lighting and food actually are two really big expenses.
Really?
Yeah, and those lights add up. It's one thing when if you're shooting on location outside and stuff, you can get away with like a few lights. But like when you're in a building and stuff, when you're trying to control the setting and trying to control it, sometimes like fluorescent lighting and stuff looks terrible on camera.
Oh,
So you have to
oh
like
yeah.
put in your own lighting and stuff. That stuff adds up after a while. That was a surprising one. Um, yeah, and then food because it's a lot of mouths to feed, and you don't want to give everybody ham sandwiches. Like you want to give people actual food that they can like, because they're working hard,
Yeah.
and we also don't have the money for like craft services. It's like but so you kind of try to figure out like a middle ground and stuff like that, and that stuff adds up very quickly.
Yeah.
Yeah, so those were probably the two most surprising things, but even to what you were saying, and this is kind of a philosophy, and I don't mind sharing this
Mhm.
because it's not really a spoiler, it's just how we are. Like one of the biggest things that we wanted to do when we started with Epicverse, because we're a small independent company, is put a focus on the fact that like while we're not throwing our production assistants on our shoulders and dancing with them on or whatever, like nothing can get done without everybody working together. And one of the big things we wanted to make sure is that our production assist from everybody from the director and producers to the production assistants felt like they were being valued and treated with respect and treated with the appreciation that they deserve, because like you said, it can be very thankless. And that's the
Yeah.
part, a lot of times it's like the rule is you'll know if you're doing something wrong because you're getting yelled at, but silence is how you know you might be you're doing something right. Very rarely do you get a good job or a thank you or anything from anybody. And we really tried to get away from that because I don't want, it's like obviously, if you're working on a production and you have 1,000 people working, it's impossible to thank every single person and still be shooting and being time efficient and stuff. But it's like making sure that like if a PA is around or that hands you a coffee, you thank them for handing you a coffee instead
Yeah.
of not talking to them or ignoring them or treating them like, well, you're just a PA. What do I care? I'm like, that
Right.
PA may be your boss one day, like, or that PA may be the next Spielberg. You don't know.
Yeah.
And but even with that even that attitude, it can be kind of like, oh, I'm just looking to make sure that I don't offend the wrong person. It's more than just saying, hey, I want to make sure that like, hey, I appreciate the work that you're doing here, because guess what? Nobody else is getting coffees or nobody else is running and getting food. Like that stuff doesn't get done without that. Like, or we have to stop everything we're doing to figure out who's going to go do that now or whatever. It's like
Right.
all these little things and all these little different cogs in the machine that sometimes don't get the appreciation that they deserve and stuff. And that was one of the big things we wanted to really focus on. And one of the things that we do, and I hope that we can continue to do something like this as we grow as a company, is like, beforehand, we talk to everybody, we get to know people, we get to know the crew, and thanking the crew for everything. And then at the end, we go through and we talk to all the different crew members and we ask them, how was your experience with this? Do you have any pointers, like anything you'd like to see different, anything that
Mm.
you think we could do better, anything that we do great that you enjoyed, all of that stuff, and getting feedback from them so that way we can grow as a company. And we get really good feedback. Sometimes people are like, oh, you could do this differently, but this was really good, or that was really good, or that was not so great and stuff, so we can improve and grow as a company instead of thinking we have it all figured out because something got done. Like, yeah, cool, the movie's done, now let's move on and do something else. It's like, how can we get better and how can we move forward so that way everybody feels that they're being treated decently. And some of the best advice I got when we started was like, if you just treat people with a modicum of human decency, they will go the extra mile for you, because a
Yeah.
lot of people in this industry don't get treated like, they get treated like garbage. They
Even look at someone in the eyes. Like, you know what I
yes,
noticed? And even myself, like occasionally I'll catch myself not doing it as if I'm like, I don't know, like I'm like spacing out and like I'll
yeah,
catch myself. I'm like, just look at the person because even that is enough to like connect with someone. And then
yeah,
I think your words just mean a little bit more, especially if you're being trying to be sincere, like, hey, you know, like what did you think about this? You know,
yeah,
give me your honest opinion. Because then you're looking at them like I'm not just like staring over you or looking down at you. I'm genuinely trying to connect with you as a human being. Um, and
yeah,
you know it's good for you as a practice, you know, for your communication, but good for them because if they're the low man on the totem pole, they feel like, oh, I'm not just some guy who's just been overlooked, and they, you know, you just grabbed the coffee cup from me and said thanks and off you went, you know, because
yeah,
one thing to say thank you in passing and grab your coffee cup or whatever and then do your thing, but it's another to be like, oh man, I really appreciate that, and you know, look at them and acknowledge that they're actually there because we're all guilty of it, you know, we're in
yeah.
the moment and spacing. But yeah, no, I think that's really important.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's the thing too. It's like if that happens, or that's how people are feeling, I want to hear that feedback,
Mhm.
because that helps me. Because it's like, yeah, like I don't know, I kind of felt like you guys were like, whatever, ungrateful, or like, I didn't, nobody talked to me or whatever. I kind of just felt like I was directionless or whatever the thing is, or hey,
Right.
this person's a total asshole and they screamed at me and I didn't feel like that was necessary. It's like, hey, thank you, because that kind of feedback helps too, because we don't want that. We want people to feel like we're a group and we're a unit that's working together to get a project done, because that's the
Mhm.
only way it gets done.
Yeah.
All, from the top down, it's like somebody doesn't do their job, things don't work well, and so that was a really big emphasis that we wanted to make when we started this, was to make sure that people are being treated well and kindly and like they matter, because that's how we move forward, you know.
One thing that I actually stumbled across this the other day. It was like a video. I watched this guy. His name is Simon Sinek. He does a lot of like
Oh yeah,
corporate like talks. He's
yep,
really, really good. I like him a lot.
yeah, he's
Some people
cool.
might not really care for his stuff because it's all corporate talk or whatever, but there's a lot of good stuff to take away from him. And one of the things that he was talking about, because I've been a manager before and I run crews now. He said that, you know, so many meetings with people are to focus on all the little things. Like if you're having a meeting with one of your subordinates, it's generally to like almost nitpick the little things that they've been doing wrong throughout the past couple months or their shift or whatever.
Yeah,
He's like, but no one's ever focusing on the things that people are doing right. Like, so in those
yeah,
meetings, it's like when you're doing it, like almost like a part of it you want to, or I would say to you is like maybe make it a point to like, these are all the things I observed that you're doing like really awesome. And like, this
yeah,
is one of the things I really like about you. Because if people focused on those positive aspects, it might help reinforce those a little bit more. I mean, no one's perfect, right? Like not
yeah,
even me, not even like the head honcho person is perfect. So you need some way to motivate people because you're not motivating people by just like pointing the finger and saying stop doing this, you suck at this and you're bad at this, and you know,
absolutely. Yep,
so it's, and I just thought like, man, that's really a really insightful thing because I don't people don't think about the positive or how people are reacting to positive feedback. I mean, everyone wants positive feedback, but when it
yeah,
comes to trying to motivate people, we automatically default to what are you doing wrong, not
yes.
what are you doing right. So
Mhm.
it was kind of cool to turn it on its head.
Yeah,
um
absolutely. And so it's a good way. It absolutely is a good way to look at things. Like I said, it's you're thankless when you're doing it right, and it's you're getting screamed at when you're doing it wrong. And we
yeah.
try to avoid that attitude, because it can really bring down the mood.
Hmm.
And that was a big learning experience too. Like when you're in the director's seat and everybody's looking to you to get things done, and there's a lot to get done, and stuff like that. And it's funny too, because there's even like this thing, like, one of the things that is when the crew's setting up and stuff like that, the crew's kind of running stuff at that moment. Like, yeah, I'm the director and I get to say like action and stuff, but like when the crew's setting up, I'm, it's making sure people are out of the way, and people are doing safety things, because it's like there's a lot to get done in a
Mhm.
very short amount of time. And the negative part of these short films and stuff is we don't have a big length of time to get stuff done, and so we shoot some of these things in very short amount of time. I mean, we shot all of Reflection, and that was a lot of scenes and a lot of work, and we shot all of that in like 4 days, and it was a lot.
Wow.
Yeah, it was a lot of work. And when I told my DP exactly what we were doing and how many days we had to shoot it, he was like, "Oh boy." I was like, "Yeah, man, I know." And he's like, "Let's do it. Let's just try it." And he worked
Can
really
I
hard, and the team worked really hard. So
can I ask why do you have to settle on 4 days for something like that? Is it just because like this is the amount of time you have your crew and you can get everything lined up, or kind of go into that a little
yeah,
bit?
well, because part of it is like some of these guys have like full-time jobs and stuff, and
Right.
so if I put together a product or production and I say, okay, what's the best time that everybody can make it out, typically the best time everybody can make it out is Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. So you do a load in on Thursday, and then Friday, Saturday, and Sunday is shooting days. That's
Dang.
typically what we have to do. That, like I said, when we get more money and more resources and more time, and are working on bigger projects, that'll be different, and we'll block out more time than that for stuff. But at the time, it's like that's what we have, and that's what works the best. People have families to get home to and things like that, and especially if you're on you know for like one of our other projects, like Reflection mostly was local. Like everybody that was working on it lived within like 2 hours of the production, so we could
Mhm.
we could all shoot and stuff like that. And we do obviously get hotel rooms for people that want it, and we definitely set up lodging and stuff. But like one of our projects that we shot, we drove 7 hours up north to do it, and so we are all staying at an Airbnb and stuff. And you only have so much time to shoot before whether it's life as usual for people, or people have to get back to work and all that stuff. It's like, so we got to make the best of the time that we have, and that's kind of how we've had to block things out, is like sometimes 3 or 4 day shoots, sometimes 2 weekends of 3 to 4 day shoots and stuff, so we can get all this stuff shot. That's the other benefit of short films, is we can kind of pace ourselves a little bit and be like, okay, we can do this and this and this way,
Yeah.
and do that stuff later or whatever. So
Do you guys have any plans to bring your films to like festivals like Sundance or any of the others? Or are you
we've
guys
talked
gonna
we've talked about it. I'm not sure. We're still kind of talking about that stuff. I think um I like festivals, but festivals are, they have
snooty?
their place, huh?
Yeah. They're a bit snooty,
Yeah, they
but
can be. Yeah, there's some festivals that are cool, and I've met some people that have given us really good advice about the best festivals to go to and the ones to avoid.
mhm.
Um, but like, yeah, I think it could be beneficial, and maybe that's something we'll do down the line. I think it just more depends on, okay, is this project something that we think we'd like to put to a festival and try to push into mainstream. Um, and just as I said in the chat, every day for shooting requires more money. That's very true.
Yeah,
Um,
that's
yeah,
true. What's up,
yeah,
Josiah? Thanks for stopping by, bro.
yeah. Like a good example is like the difference between, like, so specifically at the hospital, it's different in other shoots. Like, we didn't have any running water, so we're like, what do we do about bathrooms? So you get like a porta potty, because that's what you got, or you get a couple, and you get like a sanitation station so people can stay clean and wash their hands and stuff like that. But
Yep.
like, they have like full trailers that are like full on bathrooms,
Yep.
but those are like 2-3 grand a day. That's a
Yep.
lot of money. Like
Mhm.
that shit adds up real fast. It's like, yeah, like the faster we can get this done, the better.
Who's bringing
Um,
the coffee can?
yeah, guess we're pissing in a bucket today, boys. Um, yeah, so like you kind of it's all about cost management. That's the part that sucks. I know
Yeah.
Josiah will admit that too. The worst part is the bean counting. It's like, oh god, but
You have
it's a
to though.
necessary evil of the job. Yeah, but the
Yeah.
nice thing is too, like when you do that, you, like I said, you start to figure out what works and what doesn't work, what is needed and what isn't needed. and where you can not necessarily, I wouldn't say cut corners, because to me cutting corners sounds like you're taking an easy route. It's more like where you can say we don't really need this,
Yeah.
but we can utilize this or whatever, or even just where you can get creative with stuff where you're like, oh, what if we did this instead of utilizing all of this stuff? Do we need a crane, or can we use a drone? Do we need to get this shot here like this, or can we set it up like this? Just for things like that. That's that creativeness, and it's like that. What is it? Necessity is the mother of invention. It's like,
Yeah.
Yeah, we really need this thing to look like this or whatever. One of the things, and I was already gonna say this anyways, but now that he's here, I'll say it too. A benefit for Josiah and stuff, like, we started out really simple, and with our scripts, and we did that on purpose. We said, okay, here are the 6 ideas we have or whatever, and it can start out really simple and it can get more complicated. And when it came to reflection, I was like, I have an idea, but it might be pretty technical and pretty complicated. Like, do we want to do this? Because it's going to be one of our bigger projects if we do this. And then Josiah looked at the script and he goes, yeah, man, let's just do it, man. Let's just freaking go. And I was
That's
like,
cool.
okay. We could have, I was like, I can dial it back more than it is, or we can leave it like it is. He goes, nah, man, let's just do it like it is. Let's do it just like this. And that was awesome too. That's the exciting part of it too, is like, we trying to be conscious of money, but also going like, you know what, let's just swing for the fences with some of this stuff, because if we don't and we play it safe, and people see that that's all we did was play it safe, then they might not be nearly as accepting as if they go, yeah, I could tell they were really trying for something more
Yeah.
here,
No, that's good. And I do, well, say too, like, you're being frugal with how you're making your movies, and like your budget is not, it's not weakness, it's a huge strength. And I think anyone, like, and you mentioned earlier, like with like Star Wars, all these movies at some point had to show, like, we don't have massive budgets, but we have these grandiose ideas that I think will really work, and you
Yeah.
find ways to make it work. And if you fall a little short, like, that's fine, but you just do you're the very best you can. And if it does succeed, you just figured out how to make, like, the best thing possible, and you won't have to spend as much money down the line. Or you're watching all these other people, oh, these guys spent $10,000 on this, well, we spent 2, and we could put that money elsewhere. You know what I mean? Like, so all of this stuff is a huge plus for you guys. And I agree, I think playing it safe is, I mean, I think it's smart to know when to play it safe, but also knowing when to take the risk. And this is a big risk. I mean, starting I think just I may have said, we do not like to play it safe creatively at Epicverse. And I think that's a good thing. I mean, knowing when to, but also, experimenting and trying new things. I did want to ask you guys a question, because so the one thing I noticed about the teaser for Reflection was how good Mark and X-Ray Girl looked in that trailer. Like, they really looked like they belonged, and like they had this like acting prowess to them, which I think you either have or you don't. Do you know what I mean? You could put anybody in a role, but they might not always be convincing with how they're coming across on screen. How, like, and so your other movies are featuring other people from G&G. You have Ryan Kinnell, you have Jay, Drunk 3PO. I mean, that's another risk you're taking with using people who are not actors. Like, how are you guys feeling about that? Or is it's just a part of the equation at this point? You're like, we're taking these people, they're our friends, they're good people, we're going to make them into these, put them into these projects.
Yeah. So it's funny. That's a really good question, because one of the criticisms we hear a lot, and obviously my goal is not to just address every criticism that you hear, but sometimes you hear that you go, oh, they're just putting all their friends and stuff. That's all they're doing is putting their friends in things. And it's like, the benefit is that we have a lot of friends to reach out to help us with stuff. It's not necessarily that we're going like, hey, we should just put all our friends in all these projects. It's more like, so we write these scripts, we have ideas, and we're like, who will we cast for these things? And we have cast like actual actors that are professional actors that have worked, and we've also cast some of our friends. But the benefit of that, some of it is luck. I will say this. Some of it is luck. You don't know until somebody does something. Okay.
Right.
And we have gotten uh, a plethora of different levels of luck with that. Everybody has different skills and things like that. And I would say that we definitely fall well more on the side of positive things. I don't think anybody did a bad job with that worked with us, and I think everybody worked really hard. That's more than anything, is they put in the work. Not a single person that came to us was like, oh, I don't want to do this, or I feel silly, or anything. They were just like, yeah, let's do it. Put in the work. Let's go for it. And I think that that's the big thing. But we also realize that if you're not a professional, it would be wrong of us to expect professionalism from you in that way. So we try to cast those roles based on what we think people based on their personalities and what we know about their experience, or what we know through conversations with them, they're capable of doing without putting the burden on them to do a ton. So like, some of these roles, like people assume that like, we made Ryan Kindle an action star, or some people assume that Jay's like the main star of the movie. I won't say whether or not they are, because you'll have to watch and see, but some people are cameos. Some people are just cameos in these things, and some of them are in bigger parts of those things. Some of them have a lot of speaking roles. Some of them don't have any speaking roles at all and don't say anything. It just, there's a wide swath of things there, but it's just that we happen to have people. One of the reasons that we did this was because we also know it makes sense to say, hey, if I put Junk 3PO in something and he does a good job, which he did, people that like Drunk 3PO will want to watch this. They'll be interested in trying it out. And if Jay does a really good job and they like that, maybe Jay wants to do more. Maybe he doesn't. I don't know. That's up to him. But like that's the benefit of it, and that's the risk of it, is if we put Jake the Viking in a movie about Vikings, well, like the brand makes sense for it. And if Jake does a good job and Jake has a good time and Jake's audience really likes what he did, then they're going to come watch this and support it. And then maybe we do more things with Jake because it worked out really well. Or maybe we go, oh, that was a one-off. We probably shouldn't keep bringing them back. They did decent, but I don't want to keep putting that burden on them. Or, hey, you know what? They were not so great here, but they might be really good over here. There's all of those conversations that can happen. And it's not just about casting our friends. It just happens to be that a lot of those people are our friends because they were willing to step up and say, hey, if you need something, let me know. And they were there in the beginning. But I will tell you this, there are a lot more people that I have talked to in our community behind the scenes that have a lot of experience when it comes to acting. Like a lot. Like some people that are like classically trained actors that are like, yeah, I tried to do the Hollywood thing. It didn't work out, or I didn't really want to work in Hollywood, but I did all this experience. There's a lot of those people behind the scenes in just our communities. You'd be like, what? Really? And stuff. And those are the people that I've been talking to too about like, okay, you know what? I don't want to use you for a cameo role in a short film if I can use you for something else down the road. Like, that's the other thing, is the conversations are about getting people in where they fit in and giving people the best opportunity they have to shine and grow and do well. And if it becomes something they want to do consistently, then helping them out. And if it's something that they want to do one time and they don't want to think about it again, that's also fine. It doesn't hurt our feelings or anything like that. The biggest thing is just giving people that opportunity. So
when you guys are ready to shoot a film out here in the Salt Lake area and need a cowboy, you just let me know.
There you go.
I'm there for you.
All right.
I'm not a classically trained actor, but I've always wanted to try. No, it's that's cool, man. Like that's what I mean is like all of this, even my, when I look at like my journey on YouTube, which is a much steadier incline than most, and I'm thankful for every moment of it. But it's all about connecting the dots. It's all about finding the right people. And and this is what it goes back to what I was saying with you guys. It's about the slow burn. It's not like just setting everything on fire, which you will eventually. But people see in our congratulatory on the journey when you've made it, right? They're not aware of the hours that you spend in between, over the keyboard, fucking, just eyes bleeding because you've been editing for 12 hours, they don't see that part. They don't see you like swearing because you just can't get the lighting right in the hospital, they don't see that part. They just see like you guys made it and you have a killer film, and we can be thankful that the Epicverse is off the ground. They don't, and like all of that stuff is like, it's hard to get through in the beginning, but like you're going through the necessary steps of like, hey, like now that I know that you do this, I know where I might want to use you. I don't want to waste you right now. I have the spot for you. We're not quite ready to be there. And I mean, same thing with me to an extent is like, I'm just trying to like gradually sort of like get my claws into the side of the mountain and pull myself up when I can. It's not about just getting to the top, because if you're just there, like I said, if you're just dumping money into a project, you're not really learning the ins and the outs of like what you're capable of on that little budget. I just don't think you're as equipped for the long run. You know what I mean? Like you guys want to be around for years to come.
Oh yeah, big time. And that's the other thing too, is like, and this is not a knock on anybody, because everybody does things differently and it's how you best work. But like me and Josiah didn't want to just get the money together, write a project, and then have somebody else do it. Like we have like a lot of creative control in this stuff because we believe in ourselves and we believe that we can do something really cool with what we know. And we wanted to learn how to do it correctly. Like if we both tried out, but that's the thing, we both try out directing and we both hate it, then we'll just find somebody that likes to do directing. Like it happens to be that we both like to do it, but that's the other thing too, is like, sometimes I'm like, all right, I Josiah's like, I wrote this project, and I don't really want to direct it. I just kind of burn out on it. Will you do, yeah, I'll take it. I'll direct it or whatever. Or I wrote a project and, Josiah's like, okay, cool. Like, yeah, I would like to take point on this one. I'm like, yeah, dude, let's, because we're all learning and we're all growing. And the other thing is too, it creates different styles. Like, like you were saying earlier too, like Josiah's stuff will look different than my stuff. And that's good. That's not a bad thing. I don't want my stuff to look like Josiah's stuff. I want us to have our own distinct styles of filmmaking and styles of editing and all of that stuff, so that each of these projects feel definitive and feel like their own project. Because when we present those to our audience can tell us what they do like and what they don't like. But if every single project looks the same, then they're like, they all look the same. I don't really know what to feel about this. Like it's basically the same project in every single one. It's like, no, here's this, here's this, here's this, here's this. What do you think? And then they can give us feedback and tell us, okay, yeah, I actually really, really, really like this, or I didn't like this so much, or whatever. So that's kind of also why we kind of did things the way that we did it. We want to be able to get that immediate feedback because we're small and we're able to pivot quickly, whereas these studios are not able to pivot. And this is another criticism that we've gotten a lot. People are like, oh, this studio's the one that's gonna kill Hollywood. This is the one that's gonna finally destroy Hollywood. I'm like, yeah, you don't kill a dragon with a dagger. Like maybe you could injure it, but honestly, Hollywood's killing itself. They don't need us stepping in to push them off a cliff. They're already kind of going that route. The point that we were making was, in the wreckage of all of these ships failing and all of these movies bombing and all of this money being chucked down a rat hole and disappearing into God knows where, like we want to come up in the independent scene, and we can pivot and move quickly, and we can ride on the wave of the failures of these bigger studios. I can look at a studio and go, hey, I now know how it works behind the scenes, and I can see where you made mistakes, or I can see where you were misutilizing funds, or where all the red tape that you build around yourself to make one thing happen in a film doesn't work, and it makes it difficult. Or I can see where the struggles to connect with the audience, or the struggles to communicate directly with your audience has made it hard for you guys to create projects that resonate with the audience. Because if you don't know what your audience wants, what are you doing? Like sometimes, yes, you know, the process of creating something is you make something that you want to see and you give it to people.
Yeah.
But part of that also is knowing, like, I want to see this, but you know, if I'm the only one that wants to see a movie done about, I don't know, a guy mowing his grass, like, then nobody's gonna want to watch it. I can't be up my own ass so much that I think, yeah, I did this really cool art piece where a guy sits in a boat for 8 hours and he thinks he catches a fish and he really catches a boot. End. It's
But
like
it's
nobody
actually
wants.
his own soul
Yeah,
that he couldn't. Yeah. Yeah.
it's like nobody wants to fucking watch that. People want to be entertained. Like maybe two people, maybe fucking Lofty wants to watch that movie. And you know what?
Oh boy. Poor
Go for,
Lofty.
go for it, Lofty. Go enjoy your fucking 8 hour auteur film about a guy fishing in a fucking boat. You know, but like, there's a place for all of that. But I don't want to do that. I don't want to. I want to make stuff that's entertaining, and I want to try to, you know, make something that does resonate with people and does resonate with what I think audiences will like, and then I can get feedback from that, and they can be like, "Nah, I didn't really like this," or "This wasn't really my thing." So
It's funny you bring that up because last night we were talking about it, and I talked about it on my show last week about where gaming has gone wrong is like there was this big swing to make everything games as a service. Like it was just
yes,
everything was supposed to just go on forever. And it's just like, no, like look, I mean, and we're seeing it now, right? You look at these like AA games or these games that came out with like very little like expectation. What do they all have? They all have simple gameplay loops that we can just enjoy. Like Helldivers is an amazing example of this because
yeah,
the mechanics are fairly simple. Four people drop into a zone, there's bugs or there's robots, and you have
yep,
different like essentially kill streaks that occasionally reload. And so that's the basic framework. And you can
yeah,
add on to that very, very easily.
yeah,
And people are enjoying it. They don't need like they want the endless cycle, but they don't need all these events. They don't need all these things. And not to mention, they basically take that battle pass model. They do allow you to buy into a premium one, but the
mhm,
basic one, you can earn in-game currency very, very easily to
yeah,
unlock all of that stuff if you want to play. Some
yeah,
people, like myself, just want to go in there and play every now and then and blow some bugs head off or an automaton head off. But
yeah,
I it's fun. And in the same way, I think film needs to get back to that. They need to realize like you don't need like deep messages. I'll give you an example. I was on Netflix. We were on Netflix. I was sitting with my wife and we saw a preview for the movie Alone.
mhm.
I don't know if you've watched it, but it's an
I
interesting
haven't
film
watched it
to
yet.
watch because there's three people in the entire movie. And I
Mhm.
want to say there's probably a total of 50 words spoken in the whole thing.
Damn.
It's about a woman whose husband dies and she basically leaves home in a trailer with a trailer attached to her Volvo, and she's just driving like north. They don't even say where it is, which is another thing that is very simplistic. You don't know where it takes place. She's in a city to start, and then she drives north. I assume Pacific Northwest is where I
Okay.
assumed. All of a sudden, a guy's basically following her and stalking her, captures her, and she's got to fight for her life.
Yeah.
But what's amazing about this movie is the tension that's built with little to nothing being said. All the tension is built through framing. Like
Mhm.
everything's really close up, so you
Yep.
can't really see. It's all you know exactly what I mean.
Oh yeah.
Um, it was. I mean, some people would probably say it's a bit slow to start, especially.
Yeah.
Um, but man, that guy was so convincing as just like this creep, and like they just bring in like he actually. I don't want to spoil it. I mean, you should watch it. It's good.
Yeah.
Even
I'll watch it.
Josiah said he said it was fun to watch.
I'll check it out.
It's a good flick. And it was one that I didn't expect. I think it came out in 2020 is what I saw,
Okay.
but very, very surprising film. People should
Yeah.
check it out. But again, simple. You don't
Yeah.
need these like crazy twisting plot twists, or you don't need these, you don't need 6 movies to explain this one character. Just really, really great. So, I mean, and
Yeah.
I imagine that's something that you guys are hyper aware of, watching Hollywood become what it has become.
Definitely
So,
trying. Yeah. It's definitely a process, you know, and two things. One thing I want to point out, and this is really funny because you're not wrong about games at all. You're completely right. Everybody's trying to make games a service. Um, Helldivers is games as a service.
Yeah, but
because it's all online. The reason it doesn't feel that way is because the emphasis is the reason it's always online is so you can play with other people.
Right.
That's the difference. So that the smart part about it is games as a service doesn't just work because you want it to. Like Skull and Crossbones didn't need to be games as a service. Right. It doesn't make any sense actually to be games as a service. You make a fucking pirate game and let people be a pirate in the ocean. And if you want multiplayer, then just add a multiplayer aspect to it. Yeah. Whereas like Helldivers, well, you're also like, not only are you playing with your friends, they told you there's a guy in the game that is actively working against you. He's trying to deploy things against you and make the game harder for you. So now you go, oh, I didn't even think about it as games as a service because they don't have to announce that that's what it is. And they have complete control because that's the thing. If the servers go down, the game stops working.
Yeah.
If that company goes belly up tomorrow and they say, sorry, we don't support the servers anymore, game doesn't work. That's games as a live service. But you don't mind it because the other part of it that works is it's a good game with good mechanics. And the thing is too, they very quickly with expert precision. This is why this game is so good. Expert precision. The very opening title tells you what world you're in. This is Starship. This is Starship Troopers. You are a helldiver for democracy, and then they drop you into the tutorial, and the tutorial very quickly establishes they do not give a shit about you. They do not care whether you live or die. Just get it. But at the same time that they're doing that, they are needlessly praising you for all of the work that you're doing.
Yeah.
Good job, Helldiver. Yeah, that's democracy for you. And you're like, fuck yeah, that's democracy.
Right.
And then you drop into your first game and you get fucking mobbed by bugs. And you go, oh, that's not going to happen again because I'm here fighting for Super Earth. They completely, the genius about it is they indoctrinated you into fighting for Super Earth.
Yeah.
But at the same time, you know that it's ridiculous. The concept of it is stupid. You're working for like an obvious like fascist government regime that is like obviously likely has caused all of the problems that you're facing right now. But it doesn't matter because you're enjoying the hell out of it and you feel like a fucking superhero because you're firing a giant fucking gun at bugs. Like it's a genius concept, but that kind of thing, like in gaming, in comparison to like Suicide Squad Kills the Justice League, or in comparison to Skull and Bones or Skull and Crossbones, like, oh, here's a game where they let you feel a certain way about it. They knew what the vibe was. They knew what the audience would. They knew what if they made the audience feel this way that they probably would resonate with them. They didn't realize it would resonate that hard, but they knew that if they tried it this way, it would work. That's kind of the point. Like, you know, and it's the same way with movies. Like you said, you don't need a needlessly complicated plot. Now, can you tell one that has a really big twist at the end? Absolutely. Sure. But if you're M. Night Shyamalan and every fucking movie you do has a twist, that's all anybody's looking for. All right, where's the twist? One of the things, like his most recent movie, I don't remember, Cabin in the Woods or whatever, or is it not Cabin in the Woods? Fuck, what is the name of it? I don't remember the name of his newest fucking movie. We watched it. Me and Josiah watched it, and I actually kind of I enjoyed the premise of it. It was interesting. The twist is there is no twist. They tell you what's happening at the very beginning of the movie, and you go, "That's crazy. That's obviously not what's happening." Because it's an M. Night Shyamalan movie, and there's a twist, and the twist is there is no twist. What you're told is happening, and it's so batshit crazy that you didn't believe that it really would happen. That's a great twist. What's not a great twist is
Knock at the Cabin.
Knock at the Cabin. Thank you. Yeah. But like, what's not a great twist is when you go like, ooh, here's a movie, and you know there's gonna be a twist in it, and so the guy's like finds, I don't know, a fucking Bigfoot, and he's hanging out with Bigfoot the whole movie. He's trying to hide him from the cops and stuff, but you know it's an M. Night Shyamalan movie, so you know there's gonna be a twist, and the whole thing is going on, and they're running away from the cops, and they escape to the fucking northern woods or whatever, and they get there, and the guy pulls off the helmet, and it's just a big tall guy in a Bigfoot costume the whole time. And you're like, oh. I mean, I knew there was gonna be a twist, but like, fuck, that's stupid. Or like, or he gets there, and the big twist is the guy that travel with a Bigfoot, he was a Bigfoot the whole time too. And he was hiding in a human suit. Okay, cool. Like, that's the thing. Like you said, simplicity works. And if you can, every plot that works has a very simple concept, even if you have complexity built around it. It's like putting like a piece of candy in like a really ornate like wrapping. You go,
Yeah.
cool, that's awesome. Like, was it necessary? I don't know. But if you do it right, it makes you feel like the chocolate tastes better. If you do it badly, you go, man, that was a waste of fucking time.
Oh yeah, like I mean, it's even like someone who's worked in a restaurant for a long time or did, like, I mean, you get a piece of steak, it's just a piece of steak, but depending on who you give that to, they can cook it really well. Or you'll have one chef who will just, they'll add a little salt and pepper to it, they'll cook it beautiful, like they'll add the perfect little au jus or whatever. Or you have some asshole who's going to put ketchup and A1 on it, like everyone's gonna, that has their own way of doing it. Some will say this way is the best, and I know how to do it this way, or it's crazy like how many different ways there are to do it. And even with simplicity, sometimes you can mess it up. But like you said, it's like how you can wrap it, the little ingredients in there. I just like Hollywood now, like I was so glad I saw that movie Alone, because it just was like, oh, this is what it just kind of woke me up to the whole idea of like, just keep it simple sometimes. And maybe that film is like an extreme example, because it's well, I would say it's kind of a difficult film to write, because normally you have dialogue that's sort of like leading each page, and you have action, but that is like a lot of that film is just these long sweeping shots of her alone. It's just to give you this feeling that you're totally separated from everyone, and you need to be scared, or fear like what's happening, and leading you into this sort of dark area. But I don't know, man. So I kind of wanted to like move on to like Hollywood and a little bit, and kind of get your feel on like, well, ask you what some of your favorite films that have come out recently that you think have sort of defied our I don't know why I'm having a brain fart all of a sudden. I mean, Hollywood's been lackluster. Where do you think Hollywood has gone right? That's what I'm trying to say.
It's a good question. This one will be, I'll start out with the most controversial, and then I'll talk about other films so everybody forgets that I said this one first. This is going to be a really surprising one.
Okay.
The Barbie movie.
Okay.
Because here's the thing. The filmmaking of the Barbie movie, the set design of the Barbie movie, the acting in the Barbie movie, all actually really top notch. Yeah. All of it. Because and Greta Gerwig is actually a very talented director. She was like, "Hey, I'm going to make a movie about Barbie." And you go, "Okay, what are you going to do? How do you make a movie about Barbie? And how do you make it relevant, and how do you make it interesting?" I don't fucking know, because guess what? You know who plays with Barbies? Little girls. Yep. You know who doesn't play with Barbies? Everyone that's not a little girl. Maybe you have like a couple people, but most people don't play with fucking Barbies. Right. Okay? So you go, how do I make this appeal to as many people as possible when I'm writing it for little girls? I don't know. But you know what you do is you build Barbie's dream house. That's that's one of the first things you start with. So if you look at Barbie Land, it's all practical effects. It's all like built stuff. Like all of that stuff is painted with Barbie colors. It's all created to look like Barbie stuff. Like the set design is ingenious, because the part of the movie that is the least interesting when you're not in Barbie Land.
Yeah.
If I've actually watched the movie now a couple times with other people, the part that I don't like is the part where they're not in Barbie Land. I'm like, oh my God, I don't care about what's going on in the real world. Go back to Barbie Land. I don't actually care about these human people in their real world and all their real world problems, because it's boring. And that was the point. Like the point was, all your human needs and all your shitty like life is affecting Barbie Land, because Barbie Land doesn't need your shitty problems. All they want to do is live every day and dance, do dance parties, and fucking, like, you know, go to the beach and do beach things. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, it's the concept is actually really interesting. And while I don't think they nailed all of it, because there's definitely some preachy parts in the movie, and there's some messiness in, because there's no central antagonist in that film. Like, Ken is not the antagonist of the Barbie movie.
Yeah.
Barbie is also not the antagonist. But everybody was trying to figure out who the antagonist was of the movie. There is no real antagonist of the film, because even Mattel isn't really an antagonist. They're just a complication to the film. Like, it's kind of a weird, very meta plot. But I think that one, it making over $1 billion was because it resonated with the right market, for sure. The other part of it was, Barbie hasn't been relevant in, like, what, 10 years, 10, 15 years. So the people that were playing with those are now adults. So the movie's made for them. It wasn't made to introduce new little girls to Barbie. It was made to give these older people like Greta Gerwig, a movie about the doll that they grew up with loving and playing with. That's why all the toys and stuff, if you look toward a lot of those toys that they make jokes about and stuff, are toys that came out in the 90s, not toys that came out now. You know, that's why it's an interesting concept. I don't think
we gotta get Lofty in here. Hold on a second. We gotta get him a link so you guys can talk about how great this. No, I'm just kidding.
Don't fucking do that. Because I'm not saying it's a great. I think that there's a lot of merit to it, but it's a movie that surprised me with some of the quality that they did. Okay, that being that's one of them. I think it goes without saying, like, Godzilla -1.
Yep.
Like, come the fuck on. Like, they fucking knocked that shit out the park. Because they were just like, hey, let's make a good fucking movie. And remember what the point of Godzilla is. And that's the thing. Japan has been killing it with Godzilla movies recently anyways, because even they kind of got off into it. Godzilla was kung fu fighting everybody for a while and stuff. And it was entertaining and fun, but, like, they were like, hey, the point of Godzilla is this. He is the monument to all of our sins. And not just the sins of Japan, but the sins of humanity.
Yep.
Fucking great concept. I also think, I mean, these are some low hanging fruits, but I'm kind of swinging. Dune Part 1 and 2. You know, I think adapting Dune is extremely difficult. But I think he did a really good job of it. And then there's, like, a couple, like, there's some smaller movies that have come out in the last few years as well. But, like, the best movies, the ones that resonate the most with audiences, are the ones that feel like they have the most conviction. The biggest problem with, like, movies now are that there's not a lot of conviction in film. It's the conviction is they spend more time trying to convict you of what you're supposed to feel than they do being convicted about them and playing out the concept in their own, like, story. Like, Paul didn't have to stop in Dune and be like, religion is bad, everybody, don't be religious and don't blindly follow leaders behind you and blah blah blah. They just fucking did the story, and you kind of extrapolate that from the story. You know, where Barbie goes wrong is when it stops and preaches at you. It stops to explain to you the point. But before that, you know, go ahead.
No, I was gonna say that's what, like, thinking back on all these movies, like, I was talking to Lofty last week about just, I think we were talking about Kill Bill. And then just other, well, I mean, we were just talking about, like, female-led films anyway, and just like how there's a lot of the ones now are just they're just preaching at you, and, like, you said it best, like, it's like they stop the movie to, like, here, let me talk to you, like they're breaking the fourth wall, and you're like, what's going on? Like, now I'm totally taken out of this film for you to explain something that, like, really has nothing to do with your world, but but it has, it's like your true, and, like, because they're, and, like, I don't know, but I thought back on a movie like Kill Bill and myself, I'm like, this was such a great movie because we knew exactly what we were getting into. We were getting, like, a live action, like, revenge movie that was bordering on, like, anime, you know, like, that's what the movie was. But it never led you astray. Like, this is what's going on, have fun. But it never stopped and said, I'm better than you. men are pigs. And if they did do it, it's because it fit into the story. It never felt like it was trying to reach a broader audience. It was Bill was a pig. I need to kill Bill, not, so it was
absolutely. Well, and even the moment, like, because that's the thing. If you make a movie called Kill Bill, you have to kill Bill.
right.
So you have to know that whoever Bill is, because you only see him a couple times in the first movie, very briefly. So you know that whoever this guy is, it doesn't matter how much you see him, you know that he has to die, so he's probably a piece of shit. And then you meet all the people that he works with, and you go, oh, if these guys are fucking working with Bill, Bill has to be the worst of them. And you meet Bill, you sit in a fucking chair talking to her.
Yeah.
Like, it's really chill how they engage with each other. He's not screaming at her. He's not snarling at her or anything. He's a good dad. He's taking care of this little girl and stuff. Doesn't matter. Bill has to die. Yeah. She's come all this way to kill this guy. And whatever he did, we know what he did, but you know what I mean? Like, everything he's done and whoever he is as a person doesn't fucking matter. Bill's got to die. Yeah. That's a genius concept. That's why that movie works. I was going to say, too, the other one, and even though it won an Academy Award, which or whatever, Everything Everywhere All at Once.
Yeah.
I actually love that movie. It's actually one of my favorite movies I've watched in, I don't know, a long time. I have a lot of other movies that I love and really enjoy around this time, but like, it's one of the only movies that I've seen that does something that I think a lot of movies are missing. It's one of the first films that I've seen actually try to combat nihilism.
Yeah.
It's very common now in films to be like, what if you do a movie about a guy that starts a business and he's a total piece of shit and he rips off everyone around him, and at the end he steals everybody's money, he rides off into the sunset. Yeah. Or what if I do a movie like Uncut Gems? Uncut Gems is a good movie. But like at the end of the day, like, it's a really fucking sad movie. It's like pretty, the guy's a scumbag, and like, he finally gets it at the end, but he screwed over how many people to get to that point, and then he gets shot in the fucking face because guess what? He's a scumbag. Yeah, and he's hanging out with other scumbags and stuff like that. But I really liked Everything Everywhere All at Once. I love the silliness. Some of it got a little. It gets very silly at times, and I'm like, whatever. But
that's part of the fun, right? Like, not taking yourself too seriously.
Yeah, absolutely. And at the end of the day, the concept of like love, and that it doesn't have to be everything. It could be something as simple as like love. Like between oh my gosh, Evelyn and Raymond, or was her name Evelyn? I don't know. The main characters and her husband.
Yeah, I think so.
Like, it didn't all that mattered between those two didn't matter whether he was a penniless weirdo or he was a movie star, any of it. All it was like this connection was just love. And that was enough. Her daughter is like, what am I supposed to be? She's basically like our generation. She's like a college toting like lesbian with like weird hairdo, and she's trying to figure out what she wants to do with her life, and she's mad at everybody, and everybody's a fucking problem, and she doesn't want to tell her mom that she's a lesbian because her dad might judge, or her grandpa might judge. All the shit that we hear all the time. And at the end of the day, her mom goes like, none of that shit matters. All that matters is that I love you.
Yes.
Like, that's a great fucking message that I think is missing from movies today. And it doesn't have to preach to you about it. It represents everything with an everything bagel. It's kind of a genius concept. Like, yeah. So
my only criticism of that movie was how long it was.
It's a very long movie. Yeah.
Yeah, that was it. And I was surprised at how long it was. And I was just like, this is kind of dragging a bit. But I mean, by the end, I was like, I'm very satisfied with what I watched. Like, it was, it wasn't like one, like, it was really good, but it took too long and it's kind of meant like, no, by the end, I was very satisfied.
By the end, it's really good. They probably could have cut out all the hot dog stuff and I probably would have been much happier. Yeah. Like, man, I really don't want to watch these two old ladies like mouth fuck each other with hot dogs, but okay. Here we are. Those are some of the ones that I can think of off the top of my head. Oh man, yeah. I mean, it's weird because if you look, like, 2019 was like a really weird year because there was like a lot of bangers that came out that year. And then like 2020 on, and they can blame COVID all they want. It wasn't COVID. That was not the problem here. 2020 on, movies got real bad, like real fast.
Mhm.
Like, and I think part of it was, you know, I think everybody got so caught up in their own heads about like what they thought. And I think a lot of these actors and creatives kind of lost their fucking minds sitting around in their houses going like, what do I do with my time? You know, you're
Yeah.
watching Ellen DeGeneres go, oh God, I've played tennis all day today and I've swam in my pool 5 times. What am I supposed to do? Right, guys? How boring. Well, you're like a fucking mom and dad trying to figure out how to feed their fucking kids because they can't leave the house and nobody else can either. Like,
Right.
whole buddy, you know, like talk
Yep.
about losing the fucking plot.
Yep.
And I think that that's part of what's happened now is that I think a lot of Hollywood has got up their own ass so far that they've forgotten how to relate to people and figure out like, you know what? I am just a person playing pretend on a screen, and my whole job and my sole purpose is just entertain people. And a lot of these people have taken on this religious like idea, like this religious ideal. I have to proselytize my position as an actor, my
Mhm.
position as an entertainer. I must proselytize the gospel of, you know, whether it's, you know, the environment or whether it's, you know, the patriarchy or whether, you know, it's like, you know, and I'm like, I don't need to know your fucking viewpoints, dude. I want you to go put on a weird, silly costume with a cape and pretend you're a superhero. And I don't want to hear what your beliefs are in that movie. I want to
Yeah.
watch you do superhero shit. You
Yeah.
know, like, and that's, I think that's also what's missing in Marvel movies and stuff. They're not doing superhero shit anymore. They're like, I don't know, they're fucking running away from like running away from a witch because she's a butthole and wants her to steal her kids in the multiverse. And you're like, no, Wanda, you can't. It's a bad thing to do. And if you don't
Right.
stop, somebody's gonna shoot you in the face, okay? And she's
Yeah.
like, no, you know, I'm a woman and I should have what I want, and you're not the bad guy here. I'm like, yes, you are, Wanda. Like, if
Right.
somebody just in the multiverse of madness had just stopped, I'm like, no, bitch, you're the bad guy. Like, and you gotta
Yep.
stop. She might have
Yeah.
been like, oh fuck, I'm the bad guy. Nobody did that. They're all like, Wanda, you can't. You might hurt people. And she's like, I don't
Mhm.
care. I'm like, yeah, because she's the bad guy. Like, that's the whole point is she's the fucking villain of the film. And it's like it's just one of those things. It's like there's a lot of that that attitude and that ideology is spilled over into like, how can I push my worldview that I didn't get to share in 2020 out into the world now? How can I make up for lost time? And I'm like, you don't need to make up for lost time. Just make a fucking movie that's entertaining. I don't need to. I don't want to know. I don't want to hear it. I want to be entertained, and
Yeah.
that's why. Yeah.
Well, yeah, good stories. Like they just, and I keep saying this, like the cream rises to the top. Like it doesn't, like
Yes.
you could say all you want about like what you should do. You know, like I could sit here all day and say the best possible stories that could motivate people, but it's not going to really matter like at the end of the day unless people really believe it, right?
Yeah.
You know, like people can see through bullshit just like
Yep.
with all of this other stuff. And you write a good story that doesn't talk at the audience and just sort of speaks to your soul in a way like, oh, I know what that character is going through.
Yeah.
Like there's a strife within that person that they're fighting, right? Like there was always a goal, you
Yeah.
know, and that was the difference between the antagonist and the protagonist, was that they both had the same origin story, but they both diverted in separate ways. The antagonist never learns his lesson. They still
Yeah.
continue to try and headbutt everything, whereas the protagonist, like they might start headbutting stuff, but they have to take a moment, and there's like that fall from grace where they're like, okay, this isn't working and I have to change who I am in order to get to the next place. And now it's not about that anymore. It's about the main character is not supposed to grow. They're supposed to change the world around them
Yeah.
to fit their needs. Whereas like, well, that's not how it works, because you don't dictate how other people view you. Like you
Yes.
need to sort of adapt to what's going on. And you know, sometimes there's acceptable losses in all of that. And sometimes we do lose a piece of us, but that's kind of the point, because you're growing beyond who you were, like shedding your skin because you've outgrown it. And
Yeah.
people don't realize that that's like they think of it as like some sort of weakness and not a strength. And that's
Yeah.
where you get this whole like my truth thing and all this other crap. And I'm so sick of it. You
Yeah.
know, I'm so sick of seeing this stuff not being properly written. Like, you know, the formula, you know, the winning formula, which is write your characters. You know how successful characters are written. Stop pretending that you don't. It's like going from like, hey, we have this beautiful, amazing wheel that goes on the outside of this Maserati, and then what Hollywood's trying to do now is put square fucking stone wheels on that thing and still drive it the same way. Like, are you insane?
Yeah, what the fuck is wrong with you people? Like, it's
also, hail to George the Giant Slayer for $20. Thanks, bro. Really appreciate it. Said all hail Shags, all hail the amazing Epic Mike. Always great to see you streaming. Thanks, dude. Appreciate you, man. George has been killing it. Make sure you check out his channel if you guys are. Yeah.
But yeah, man. I mean, it's one of those things. Like, it's another reason I like being independent. I'm not trying to reinvent the wheel, no, but like, when I learned about screenwriting and stuff, one of the things they walk you through is they give you a book. They mention this book, and I remember starting to read this book. God, I fucking hate this book. It's called Save the Cat.
Yeah.
And it is about how to write a story that Hollywood loves. And I was flat out told, they're like, listen, you have to read this book, because the terms in this book, every producer reads this book, every executive producer reads this book, and they're going to ask you when you pitch your idea to them, well, where's this part of this? And where's that part of this? And where's this? Because this is a time-tested formula to make movies. And I'm like, I don't want to make your movies, but I don't want to fucking make a movie based on a fucking book. Some guy tells me every movie has to have these things in it. Like, that's like saying, like, yes, The Hero with a Thousand Faces, the hero's journey. It's a very time-tested tradition, but the point of that story is, the point of the hero's journey is, here's a time-tested traditional way to tell a story. And if you follow this, you'll make a really interesting story. But the other part of it is, if you find a way to deviate from it, you may make an even more interesting story. Or if you fuck up the way that it all plays together, it may be really interesting. That's the thing. I don't want to have to always have a dark night of the soul and have to explain that to a fucking producer. But that's the way Hollywood works, is if I want to get a movie made, I got to pitch this to a producer, and they have to decide whether or not they're willing to give me any money to do it. And they may decide, you know what, as I'm talking to them about it, and I tell them, hey, this is a movie about a kid who loses his dog, and he goes wandering in the wilderness to find his dog, and he comes across the bear and has to kill the bear to find, and he finds his dog and saves his dog. Into the movie, yay. And the guy goes, can you get bit by a spider? Like, what? Well, spiders are kind of scary. Or, when I was a kid one time, I got lost in the woods, and it was, I found a bobcat. Can we have a bobcat in the movie? That would be kind of, like, what the fuck are you doing? I'm like, I didn't come to you. Go pitch your own fucking movie to somebody else, man. Right. I don't care that you have the money to do this. Why are you talking to me about my, sometimes you can say, hey, right now, that's a really interesting concept. Have you thought about X, Y, or Z? That's fine, whatever. But like, you sitting there pitching to people what they should add to their movies because you want to feel like you're more than just a money man. You're not more than just a money man. Just give me the fucking money to make the movie if you think it's a cool idea. Yeah. Because that's the thing. We've also seen a lot of movies die on the block because they didn't fit whatever a producer was looking for. Or we've also seen movies that are great scripts, amazing, phenomenal scripts, get fucking scrapped and thrown in the garbage in favor of another idea, or taken apart and added onto in such a way that the original idea was completely lost. One of the stories one of the examples I use a lot is Ant-Man, because Jon Favreau read the script for Ant-Man and was in fucking tears, because Edgar Wright's original script for Ant-Man was really, really, really great story. Yeah. And then Disney was like, yeah, but you got to add this in, and you got to do this, and you got to do that. And Edgar was like, nope, I'm fucking done. Deuces. And you get rid of one of the best working directors of today with some of the most like packed, like solidly packed stories. Because if like, you can't ever watch an Edgar Wright movie once. You have to watch them multiple times. There's so many details and so many things he puts in the background of things, and the way that you rewatch it again, you go, oh shit, I didn't even think about that time. He does that with all of his movies. Imagine Ant-Man with that level of quality. Yep. Might have been one of the best MCU movies we ever got.
Oh, will for we sure.
Ever know? No, because they wanted to do their own thing with the script, and he was like, you know what? If you're gonna keep fucking with my story, I'm out. Deuces.
Yep.
Like, what a fucking mistake. Like, but that's the beginning of the when you have somebody like Jon Favreau who makes Iron Man 1, loves it, everybody genuinely agrees is one of the best MCU films. He makes Iron Man 2, complains about studio interference, won't make Iron Man 3 because he's like, nah, they kept fucking with my stuff, I don't want to do this anymore. that should have pointed a lot of people out. Yo, there's probably something else going on here. A lot of the MCU, surprising as it is, was them making money despite themselves because they
Yeah.
got lucky.
Yep.
But at the end of the day, when you have then the Russo brothers take over and do, what was it,
But
4
they did.
movies?
Yeah.
Yeah, 4 movies, 3 or 4 movies or whatever. When you start having people that go, okay, yeah, they did a really good job and they're following the thing, so let's just keep giving them the stuff instead of letting other people take a shot at it. When you have somebody like Kenneth Branagh play Thor 1 and this is Shakespearean epic or whatever, and then the next movie is like, you know, not a great MCU film by any means or whatever, and then you have to reboot the 3rd movie into a fucking comedy special because you fucked up Thor so bad that nobody knows what to do with him. Like, it should speak to a lot of things as a company, and I'm using them as an example, but that's why they failed as a company, because they that's why they're failing now as a company,
Yeah.
because they put the idea of creative control and everything onto producers and onto the people that were at higher up, and then gave creatives, actual creatives, directors and stuff like that. They basically just said, as long as you work within the confines of this, do whatever you want. But those confines are real tight. And there's only really so much you can do. So
Do you think that do you think the MCU would have ended with Endgame had they not just like let the studios control as much as they did? Like, I mean, because you're basically saying like they're making so much money despite themselves, you know, like
yeah,
it was like they were just getting lucky, like one after another. And in a lot of ways that was true. They were I mean, Incredible Hulk with Edward Norton was good, not great, but I think it definitely got people talking. Iron Man was like, oh boy, like
the
we have
movie.
something here. Yeah.
Yeah.
And then, and then you had, what was it, Captain America after that?
Yep.
Uh,
Joe
and
Johnson,
then,
which is pretty good. Yeah.
right. And yeah, so like it just sort of like it happened for itself. And I just think in a lot of ways, had they just ended with Endgame, I don't think anyone would be saying anything. But now they made so much money that it's just like, well, we can't stop. We have to keep this going because it's a money machine. And I mean, I think now they're starting to realize it's not the money machine they thought it would be. Uh,
Yeah. Well, I think they thought they were infallible, and that's impossible. And
right.
like, a lot of conversation about superhero fatigue. Everybody has their own opinions on it. Some people think that it's just, they're boring. I know Razor Fist's opinion on it is that superhero fatigue is because studios become lazy. There's a lot of different contributing factors, chicken and the egg. The reality is superhero fatigue is only there because studios stopped wanting to actually like put work into the stories.
Yeah.
It's not that difficult to figure out, okay, you know what, if this is if Endgame is like our big bad huge explosive story, you know what we can't do? Go much higher than Endgame.
Right.
What do we do after that? Where do you go after you just, what you do is, instead of trying to go bigger and badder with the multiverse, you go, let's tell smaller, more intimate stories again.
Yes.
Let's build it all up from the
Thank
beginning.
you. Thank you.
Yeah.
And like that was the other thing you helped me remember. Miniseries so highly underutilized. I feel like there's so many good stories. Like you don't have to do like even like take a movie that I can't even think that would maybe apply to it, but there's so many like even books that get adapted to movies, and you're like, don't do it as a movie, like do it as a miniseries, like do 3 or 4 episodes of this book and see how it goes. And we're starting to see TV shows adapted to books, and that's a whole other issue. But I just think like the miniseries thing, I think they were doing for a bit, and I don't know why it went away really, but it seems to be a very underutilized medium for people in storytelling, and coupled with people don't know when to end stories. Like you can end stories now. It's totally fine. You don't need to keep stories going on indefinitely because it's stakes, right? Like these like part of the stakes of a story is that there's going to be an end. Like at some point either the hero will die or they will complete their journey and off we'll go. And that's our end too. Like, oh, well, we're not going to see this person anymore. They'll ride off in the sunset.
Yeah.
One of my favorite endings to a TV show, I think it's like nearly perfect, is 6 Feet Under. Like literally, she drives off into the sunset, and then we kind of see everyone's end to their life as it goes, goes out. Like literally, okay, it's over. I no longer have to look forward to a sequel because I know that everyone dies. Sad as that is.
Yeah.
But I just wish more stories would end. I don't need them to go on indefinitely. I don't need multiple TV series to link all these movies together down the road. I would prefer, because that would also mean, in order for them to continue making movies, they would have to come up with something original.
Yes. Well,
or ruin another franchise.
Yeah.
Yes.
Well, at the same time too, like one of the things that was a genius move in the MCU that people don't talk about is that none of the TV shows have any bearing on the movies. It's a connected universe in that the movies influence the shows. Shows do not influence the movies. That shit only goes from top down. And so once they started trying to sell, because here's the thing, as much as people may try to defend those shows, I'm not saying you are, but just in general, those TV shows, WandaVision, Loki, it's all just to sell Disney Plus. That was all it's for.
True.
They that's all that they did it for, is they went, you know what, we could make a movie about Loki and people would probably watch the shit out of it. But why would we do that when we can make a series? Because we need to push people to Disney Plus, because we need people to buy this fucking streaming service from us. That's why you see movies like they remade Lady and the Tramp with like live action CGI dogs.
So
just
bad.
Put it on Disney Plus. They were like, fuck it, just put it on Disney Plus, whatever. They put a lot of shit on Disney Plus. You're like, yo, they rebooted the Mighty Ducks, and you're like, yo, the Mighty Ducks. Yeah, well, it's a TV series on Disney Plus. Don't worry though, it's gone now. You can't even fucking find it on there. Oh, Willow, you guys like Willow? How about a series on Disney Plus? You're like, no, could you either leave it alone, or if you're gonna do it, like make another movie or something because it was a movie? Like, nah, why would we do that? Disney Plus, man, just go. That's the thing. Like, part of it is the motivation was wrong. There was a lot of things that you could have done there that they just decided not to. And there's a wealth of fucking characters, and a good example of that was what they did with Tom Holland's Spider-Man, which is like, even though the multiverse shit was stupid, you do that story, you wrap him up. He's no longer Iron Spider. He's just Peter Parker as Spider-Man, and that's how you end it. And you start phase 4 off with Spider-Man as Spider-Man, and you tell an intimate, singular Spider-Man story that doesn't have all these other superheroes jumping into it and involving themselves in the storyline. It's just that, him trying to maybe get MJ back, and also fucking, I don't know, Kraven the Hunter shows up and kicks the shit out of him. That would have been a great movie. You could have done that, but that's not what they're doing, and you're seeing like how at this point they're just kind of flailing and they're just throwing shit at the wall to see if it works. Like, they're bringing up characters that nobody gives a shit about. I'm like, you guys have the X-Men. You guys have fucking Fantastic Four. You have Dr. fucking Doom, like one of the most badass super like villains ever. And like, imagine that. You go from Thanos, Mr. like universal threat, snapping his fingers, fucking up the universe, to like Dr. Doom, and he's like, I'm gonna take over the fucking world.
Yep.
I'm a fascist dictator. I'm gonna take over the world. And like, now you bring it back down to a global scale, and everybody's fighting Dr. Doom. And then what you do, if you really want to get into bigger stakes, have Dr. Doom get all crazy powerful and shit and using magic and shit, fucks up and opens up the multiverse. And now you got a whole fucking multiverse saga. You could have done a lot of shit with this. Like, there's a lot of places you could have gone, because guess what? It's in the comic books. They wrote it for you already. You have it right there.
Source material is there.
Source material is there. And instead they made Secret Wars, and they were more interested in having Nick Fury make out with a fucking green chick than they were having like an interesting Secret Wars story, which, by the way, Secret Wars isn't even over, because there's a thing about Secret Wars in Deadpool. So we're probably going to get more Secret Wars. Wow. Isn't that interesting?
Don't care.
Yeah,
well, that's like the Acolyte. When I saw the Acolyte trailer, I was talking about this last night on my show, like, our the midweek hump. I don't want to say my show, it's our show. I really liked the poster. I know everyone was laughing at it because it looked like a fucking tampon, whatever. That's not what I thought about originally. Like, even knowing that it was about a woman, like, I just thought, oh, this is pretty cool. Like, it looks dark. Like, oh, like Sith lightsaber, red, like blood, like, and like even the chick in the trailer was like, she has knives. So I was like, okay, so she's like gonna cut people up. I know a lightsaber cauterizes a wound. Fuck. Oh my God. Jesus Christ, chat.
It's artistic, yeah. Like,
Right. No, but I just thought, yeah, it was a cool artistic thing. But then I saw the trailer and I was like, I feel nothing. I feel nothing for this trailer, and it's so sad. The only thing I liked about it was Carrie-Anne Moss. I thought Carrie-Anne Moss's parts were cool. Maybe it was because I felt like a callback to Trinity or whatever, but I thought her character looked like cool and legit. Everyone else, I'm like, everyone's here because they needed to check a box. And actually I didn't have an issue with the reused line from A New Hope. I thought that was kind of cool to tie it together in the very beginning, the little voiceover from the Jedi guy. But it just, I don't know. It was, I'm sick of feeling nothing. And one thing that Sheep Sidian said last night is that I'm sick of going into movies and not feeling like we have to have low expectations for something.
Yeah.
And then like be proven wrong. Like that is literally the only way to go into movies nowadays.
Yeah.
You have to like go in with the lowest expectations, and then it's not hard to exceed those expectations. And then we're like, oh, that was a good movie. Same thing with Alien Romulus. I like the teaser trailer. I think it's cool that they like might go back to a horror feel, but there was good points made about it probably not being horror, and it's probably going to be just some murder porn that is, just as woke and weird as the previous two, which is
nobody's saying it might just be a rebooted Alien.
Right. And that's I don't know, man. That's unfortunate, but
it is.
Yeah.
It's a thing. Here's the thing with Star Wars. It's real simple, and that was the point. It's dark versus light. Some of those dark and light people have fucking lightsabers. They have giant light sticks that they swing at each other and try to kill each other with.
Yeah.
That's pretty cool. And in the backdrop of all of that, giant galactic war between a giant imperial like fascist dictatorship run by a mysterious dark figure and a rowdy bunch of rebels that want to take it down. You know, like Star Wars is a very simple formula that you really don't have to like think too much about, because the concept is light and dark. It's very much there. The problem with like The Last Jedi and stuff like that is they started trying to muddy the waters of like what that meant, and maybe light and dark isn't as light and dark as we think it is, and maybe the good guys are not the good guys. Maybe they're bad guys because they're imposing their will on good people and blah 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 and all this stuff. And it's like there's definitely an interesting concept there, but there's been people that have done it far more interesting than this. And there was already a story there. Like my thing is this: you don't need to mirror A New Hope. Like, how interesting would it actually be to just put in a story, like a Star Wars story set in a new part of the time, a new timeline or a new time period with characters that you don't know anything about.
Oh, yeah. I said that for a long time. Yeah.
You're like, oh shit, this is not the Old Republic. It's not the fucking High Republic either. It's just a fucking time and period in the Outer Rim with a fucking character that does something, like that's the thing. But they don't want to do that. They think they need to rely on nostalgia to sell Star Wars. And that was never needed. They just don't know what makes Star Wars special anymore.
Or how about this? And how about this? You could even do something, and I'll steal. Was it Mr. Grant Gregor that was talking about last night? Like, do a Star Wars movie. This wasn't his idea, but it's kind of what he was talking about with like Alien. Put it in a completely different galaxy where people are discovering the Force, and don't even mention Star Wars, but like make it a story that maybe by the end they like, maybe it comes off as like you're starting a new trilogy with this brand new hero that is trying to fight a cause, and he doesn't know what's happening to him, but he's learning how to control the Force. Like, how cool would that be? It would be fucking dope. And you could maybe even work in the whole like the gray Jedi, or the gray areas of the Force, and like using it for your benefit or for the greater good, because that will always be present in humanity. That story can be absolutely told. It's just, but reworking the same trilogy essentially, but with, slightly different characters is like, like, okay, we already seen this.
Yeah.
This guy is, like, why?
Yeah. Well, and here's an interesting thing too, and this is, it's an interesting concept with Star Wars. The reality is, at the end of the day, too, if you're not a light side user, you're going to be a dark side user.
Yeah.
It's kind of it's a very interesting concept that George Lucas set up. The point was the dark side like always wins if you use it.
Yeah.
Because you can't help it. It's like a drug. It's addictive. Like that's why like you really dig into it, and that's why that like gray concept of like, what if I'm not a Jedi, but what if I'm not a Sith, really doesn't work very well in the concept of what the Force really is. The light side is you utilizing the Force with whatever means that you can utilize it, because like you're allowing it to flow through you and do things, but you're trying to do it for the betterment of humanity. Anytime you're not using it for that, you're using it as it's the dark side power. It's going to corrupt you. It's the natural way of the Force, that if you're using the dark side or you're using it for any other means other than other people and to help other people, you're going to fall to the dark side. It's why Mace Windu, if you like learn about his style of like lightsaber combat, he's the only one that ever mastered it, because you have to utilize the dark side to use it, and you have to have a will that's able to resist the fact that you like hurting people and you actually want to kill the guy that you're fighting, because everybody else that used it fell to the dark side. Every single person, because they're like, fuck,
it's interesting because it's all an interesting allegory almost for like Christianity, like the light side is like you've given yourself to Christ and you're not like, but like the dark side will always consume that person, right? If you dip your toe in there, like you're not going to be saved. And it takes a lot to sort of, to get back to it. I don't know. Yeah. It's very interesting. Like I'm realizing that now. I didn't necessarily realize it at first, but
but it's just an interesting concept that George Lucas established that Disney didn't really need to like change the formula on. And also, we didn't need a Han Solo fucking movie. Nobody never needed that. I don't need to know where he got his gun or where he got his name. I don't need to know that some Imperial officer was like, "Oh, you're by yourself, Han Solo." Huh? I'm like, I don't need him. I don't want to see that.
Right? Who gives a shit? Yeah.
Yeah. Like if you want to do like an interesting Han Solo story or something, if you want to go back, then like don't tell me his origin story. Just do like a fucking story where I don't know, do the Kessel Run story or something. Just do something cool with Han Solo if you really need to. You don't need to at all. But if you absolutely have to, I don't need that. But that has become the norm now. Let's go back and tell the origin of things. Let's go backwards and tell a prequel about where this thing came from or where these ideas came from, because the idea that something could be mysterious or be left up to interpretation is like almost like angering and irritating to like modern writers today.
Yeah.
They can't let anything go. We got to know where everything came from, because they think that that's what's interesting. And it's actually shitty fan fiction if you really think about it. It's like, let's say you write a book, Shags, and the book starts in the middle of a war, like a medieval times or like a fantasy world. It's the middle of a fucking war, and you're telling it, and you tell through the rest of the conflict. Maybe there's some flashbacks to what happened to install context, but then the end of it, like they defeat the Dark Lord, everybody wins, yay, happily ever after. And somebody goes, wow, that's a really interesting story. I wonder what happened before. You're like, well, there's some history before, and there's some very interesting history before, but we're talking about this now. This is the story from this point to this point. And somebody goes, yeah, but I want to know everything that happened before. Where did that guy get that magic sword from? Or where did that guy get the training to become a great warrior? And you're like, you can tell that stuff, but that's not as interesting as finding another story to tell in this universe or finding another thing. But what modern writers do is they go, you know what? I'm going to take where you started, and I'm going to tell everything before that. We're going to tell how this whole thing started. We're going to explain how it all happens. And you're like, okay, cool. And then you don't have anything interesting, because really what it's relying on is knowing what's coming to keep people interested.
Well, was it that line? I don't know if Gary's the one who came up with it, but like all roads lead to Jake Skywalker. Like that's I mean, it's essentially what like these prequels do is like, I know where this ends. And like, so there's not a whole lot of mystery to what's going on. Now, I liked Rogue One. I think what they did with that was really cool. And it like, I mean, I think most people, I think it's like sort of a unanimous thing. Like Rogue One was a good prequel to what was going on. A lot of good action. But it's still you knew where we were stopping, like what the next thing was. It was not a happy movie.
No.
But I don't know. And that's even the prequels in general. Like, I know this little boy is going to become this really awful person. And I think they did I think it was really ineffective at really showing his transformation. The Clone Wars seemed to do a much better job at at all that, in my opinion, the Clone Wars TV show.
Yeah.
But it's just, sometimes you don't need all that history, as you said. You sort of fill in the gaps with your mind. It's part of the fun of reading a book, right? Like, I don't need to know every single detail. Like, that's what I do, is I fill in these little spots, and it's kind of fun that I don't know every single thing. It's like some writers are overly descriptive in their writing, and you're like, oh, dude, stop describing that block of cheese already. Like, I get it.
Gotta hear about it.
Yeah. So it's, I don't know. I mean, what's really cool is, like, I hear you talking about all these things, and it's good that you understand. I mean, I know we've all talked about this ad nauseum, in our own channels, and you do it with Geeks and Gamers, and I've done it in my shows. Like, we are aware of what's going on, and it's great that you're starting to make your own projects, because I think it's what we need. We need people like you who are creatives, who want to see good things written, and who understand the problems that exist in Hollywood and have a good idea on how to fix them, because they need to be fixed. Because even someone like yourself, you guys are making movies. Like, you might catch the eye of someone in Hollywood, and they go, these guys know what they're doing. This is something new. Like, we need these guys to make, you never know where support's going to come from. And I'm so stoked for Reflection, but I'm stoked to see these other films and what they are, because all I see are movie posters. I don't know what they are. So it's, I don't know.
I'm glad you're excited, because that's the hope. That's, at the end of the day, that's the thing. And the other part of it is, like, we're not living in a world where we're trying to burn everything down. Like, we did the trailer where we burned down the Hollywood sign, but I mean, like, I am, Josiah, all of us are open to working with anybody in Hollywood that wants to work with us. We don't turn away professionals because we don't like your ideology, or we don't like where you came from. Like, that's the thing. Like, we all get there together. The problem has always been that these studios don't care about people. They don't give a shit about what the like individuals, and typically it's just a meat grinder. They just throw people in and they come out the other side. It happens with actors all the time. There's a reason that you hear, like, and Dave Chappelle talks about this too, like, why why actors and stuff like that, why so many of them are prone to have nervous breakdowns and have stuff. These are people that, like, yes, some of them are, like, exceptionally stupid, but they're capable of playing pretend and making you feel things that you didn't think you could feel. And they're also capable of memorizing an entire script and learning all these lines to play this character that you play pretend. That's quite a skill. Entertainment is important. It's always been important. People have entertained each other for years with stories and concepts and playing pretend. It always happens. It's part of our human nature. But the part of it that's scary is, why are these people having so many fucking problems? Why do so many of them die of drug use? Why do so many of them have so many controversies? Why do some of them have so many fucking divorces and have all these, like, other issues in their lives? There's obviously something going on in this industry that is so deeply corrupt that it's hurting the people that work for them. And I don't want that to happen anymore, because guess what? I'm not interested in corrupting people around me. I want people to be uplifted, and I want people that love their craft and love acting, love writing, love putting rigging and set design and all that stuff. I want them to be able to work and feel good about what they've done and look back on what they've done and not feel ashamed, and then not have to feel like they had a guy stick a finger in their butthole to get anywhere in this industry, because unfortunately that happens a lot too. It's weird how many times you hear, wow, this person got really high up in the industry, and you find out they were sucking a lot of dick to get there. And guys and girls, that's the other part of it too. Like, it's an unfortunate thing, but it doesn't have to be this way. That's why I'm not defending Hollywood. It's not
Yeah.
just because I want them to fall apart so I can be successful. I would much rather these studios keep making great movies and I can keep enjoying them. But now I want to get into the mix because I think I have something to say, and Josiah thinks he has something to say, and we believe that there's other people that have something to say and aren't getting a fair shake because they're not willing to suck a dick to get a script sold. Because I'm certainly not doing it, you know. So like,
Good to
that's
hear.
the thing. Yeah. Epicverse. We're not sucking dicks to get ahead. Like
I like the
that's our,
tagline.
that's our whole motto right there. No, but that's the reality. Like the system is corrupt and there's a lot of problems, and a lot of people that even work in the industry are willing to admit that. And I want to see something new come out of the ashes of this that people can like be proud of and not feel so fucking bad about when they get done working on something. So
no, that's good, man.
Yeah.
I think you guys are on the right path for sure, and I'm not just saying that because I consider you a friend. I'm honest, like honest to God. You know, as I do more and more of these interviews, like I realize like honesty is the best policy, and I try and like be myself and like, you know, like I said, we talked about like the movie posters real quick. Like at first glance, I'm like, like I wonder how these guys are going to do it. But on the flip side, like I said, I see Mark and I see X-Ray Girl, like blow it out of the water. They look so good in that trailer. They were convincing. I'm excited to see where these other teasers coming, because I mean I imagine you guys will be doing teasers for those, the trailers for those movies. And you know, and I forgot, you know, Fear the Beardo, like him and Jake the Viking, like those guys, like I want to see. I've seen the production photos from that movie. Was it Blood and Water? Is that what it's called?
Yep.
Blood and Water. So I've seen some of those pictures. We've seen the teaser for Reflection. I can't wait. And like I said, that's my biggest problem now is I'm just like, like, let's go. I need it now. I need it now.
Yeah. Well, that's a good problem to have is people want you to get stuff done. So
yeah. Well, dude, like seriously, thank you for joining me tonight. It's I love having you on. You're always a good dude to talk to. You got a lot going on. You're busy, and it's good to see people. It's good to see people creating and doing independent stuff. It's and finishing it, right? I don't care who's doing it. I've said this a lot. I've talked to a lot of people over the past few months. Some people that people like, some people that people don't like, but everyone's creating things, and it's awesome to see. I really enjoy these new ventures. The Epicverse is coming up. You know, whatever you want to put under the Iron Age umbrella, like all that stuff, like especially prose writers. Prose writers are going like way under the radar right now, but so many are starting to pop up in my feed. You know, doing these epic fantasy novels or sci-fi novels.
Hell yeah.
You know, I think it's a really great thing that people need to get into. In comics, like get in, support these people. They're working hard. They're providing parallel economies, and they're providing like livelihoods for people, you know, to thrive in, and giving people ways to move up in the world. So
absolutely. Yep.
So thanks, Mike, for joining me and being a part of that system that's creating something good.
It's my pleasure, man. Yeah.
What do you have coming up that people can look forward to? You know,
well, like I tell everybody right now, you know, we have not officially launched as a company. That's something that we're working on, you know, behind the scenes. We have not raised any money. We have not taken any money from anybody for it. We're just doing it out of our own pockets. And so if you ever want to support the Epicverse, you know, I stream on kick.com/epicmike. That's where I do a lot of my stuff at. Supporting me over there. You know, Josiah's got his channel, supporting him over there. Those always, that's how you help Epicverse right now. If you're somebody that has worked in the industry or interested in getting into the industry, or you have ideas, put your name in the hat now, because it's a lot harder to make negotiations with somebody when you have a lot of money and resources and when you don't have anything and they're still willing to help you. That's what I tell anybody, because a lot of people reach out to us and they think, oh, you guys aren't doing anything with me right now. I'm like, yeah, but your name's in the hat now. So I don't have to worry that you're just trying to get something from me, versus when we have money in the bank and we're making a project and you go, yeah, do you want to fund my project? And I'm like, no, I don't. Like, I want to fund my projects. You know, I want to fund other people's projects that have been working with us from the beginning, not somebody showing up at the end and being like, "Hey, I have cool ideas. I'm glad you guys finally made a lot of money, so I can talk to you about it." It's like, yeah, that's cool, but we have other projects that we're really interested in too. That is to say, you know what? We're always open to receiving ideas and concepts. We'll always be open to that. That's how we do things. The process will be very different later than it will be now. So,
Right.
yep.
Well, hella cool, man. And
Yeah.
thank you to new member Wrathchild78. Thank you for your new membership. Appreciate you. George the Giant Slayer came through with the 20 spot. Thank you very much.
Yeah.
Thank you for all 27 likes on the stream tonight, guys. It's really great to have those likes and the engagement. Thank you, chat, for hanging out. We are all done for this evening. Be sure to keep an eye out on my channel. Tuesday nights, it's looking like Shagcast is going to be a thing regularly. So you can follow all the fun little news stories, and I'll be just sort of recapping the things that I have something to say about. Be sure to, if you check the description below, join the Discord, be a part of the community, and hang out with us. We really appreciate y'all. But we'll see you guys next time. Thank you so much. Peace.
Deuces.